We all know those people who fail at everything they do, the ones who make you think, at least I'm better. The hero of this story is a complete loser, trying to borrow money to pay for an apartment. His name is Caleb Brown, 29 years old, and he is a writer of short stories, although he barely makes ends meet. Sitting in his apartment with cockroaches, he will be able to survive another month, and that's just him. It's late at night outside, and Caleb is sitting reading the comments on his upcoming story, which are a complete mess. Although the readers are not to blame for anything, if someone did not like the process, it means the author failed to attract them. He would like something similar to happen to him, an amazing story like in the novels. Suddenly my head started spinning and my vision started to darken, and my nose started bleeding. A man came up from behind and offered napkins, but then our hero realized that he was home alone and looked around in fear. He found himself in a large hall, the interior of which resembled a courtroom. The old man sitting at the judge's table loudly announced his name and age, and then announced the cause of death: overwork. Our hero appeared before the king of hell himself, the chief judge of the other world. Caleb's life came to an end and he went to hell, but the supreme demon said that he was very lucky. Every soul that goes to hell has a serial number, and our hero's number consists of only 7s. As a reward for his lucky number, the Demon King grants him one wish. Of course, you can't wish for anything outrageous, such as becoming a god. The demon's aura is quite creepy. You can't joke or say unnecessary things. When the old man gets irritated, his anger can be felt in the air around him. Caleb voiced his desire to be reborn in the novella The Sorrowful One, but was refused, because being reborn in a book he wrote himself is the same as becoming a god. Then our hero remembered another story that lay on his desk before his death. Of course, he doesn't know everything from that book, but he remembers some moments. The main character lives there quite comfortably. It's called I Became the Worst Student in the Hunter School, and this story will be his wish for reincarnation. The king of hell accepted him and said that he could fulfill a couple more small requests. The first one Caleb shouted was to send him 2 years before the start of the main story. In the original, the story begins with the protagonist entering high school. However, his dark streak came in the last 2 years of high school, and if Caleb can change before the main story begins, things will be much easier for him. He couldn't think of a second request, but he felt like he was about to leave this place. At the very last moment, our hero asked to make him beautiful, to mix in him all the best qualities of popular people, and so his soul left the court of the afterlife and went to live in a written story. Once he had completely disappeared, the devils began to discuss the situation. None of them expected such a desire. Something unusual happened. Although appearance is part of a person's abilities, usually in such cases people ask to be placed into the bodies of the main characters. Caleb opened his eyes to emptiness, an endless white space around him. Like a dream, it seemed like he really died. He heard a voice that said that the transfer of Caleb Brown's soul into Matthew Taylor was complete. Our hero looked at his hand. It was someone else's. Now he will live a different life in a different body. However, there is one thing. I would like to understand who this Matthew Taylor is. The main character of the novel is called Bradley Anderson. Someone needed to more clearly articulate their desire. The voice announced the beginning of Matthew's memory restoration, after which Caleb's head seemed to overload. In the world of hunters, the talent of a hunter is revealed at the age of 10, and a special test is conducted to enter the school of hunters. However, Matthew was unable to pass it. The director of the shelter where he lived stole the testing kits, after which she reported that not one of the children received the required result, so the children were sent to a regular school. Over time, when the law was revised and retesting was done, it was found that 15% of the children in the shelter had an average rating, but transfer to the hunter school was no longer possible. Matthew left school at 20 and worked as a porter for hunters, but when he awakened his abilities, he became one himself and joined the guild. This guy seems to be just as unlucky, and in the future, Matt's memories will pop up in Caleb's mind in certain situations to prevent overload. Our hero doesn't know how to react. He wanted to finally become important and lucky, but now he feels deceived. When he wished for reincarnation in the novel, it seemed obvious to him that he would be the main character. But now, even in his second life, he will be the embodiment of misfortune. However, thanks to the memories that had now appeared, Caleb was able to remember what kind of character this was. He is a swordsmanship teacher in the main character's parallel class, a minor character among minor characters. No matter how much he thinks about it, Caleb thinks it's all unfair. If he had known in advance, he would have asked to go to heaven. He would love to go back and meet this swindler face to face. But to return to the afterlife, he must die. If I commit suicide for the sake of this meeting, I will have to rot in hell with him. Caleb was still a little indignant, but all preparations for his departure were complete. He woke up with a sharp jump, as if he were dreaming of falling from a great height, and was still finishing the sentence he had started shouting in his sleep. At first, our hero even thought that he had returned home. But after looking around the room, he realized that he had not dreamed at all. The phone on the nightstand rang, coming from someone listed as the finance department. On the other side, Our hero was addressed by the name Matthew Taylor, and this upset him again. He doesn't want to accept this fact, still considering Matt a weak teacher and a failure. But the purpose of the call is to confirm the severance payment, and also to let you know that if there are any questions or problems, their department will be happy to help. After hanging up, Caleb checked his incoming messages, where he saw a notification about a large sum of money being deposited from the Chase Guild. Perhaps this Matthew is not such a loser. Despite all the difficulties, he was able to create conditions for a comfortable life. And when our hero saw the total balance on the account, he joyfully ran around the apartment, shouting that he was Matt Taylor. Looking through Matt's memories, Caleb decided that their lives weren't that different. For some people, 2.5 million may not be much. But for a third-rate writer who died from overwork, barely making ends meet, it is. This is a great fortune that he could never have imagined. It is a sin to complain about such a life. Despite the fact that there are monsters, portals, and hunters, everyday life in the city is no different from the real world. In this world, our hero is 25 years old, and now he is an incredible handsome man. Young, handsome, with good abilities and endurance. Of course, in the future there will be a dime a dozen of B-rank hunters. Against the background of the main character, who was born into a wealthy family and will become increasingly stronger in the second part of the novel, Matthew will fade into insignificance. The existence of his character has absolutely no effect on the main plot, but maybe that's even wonderful, and Caleb will live his life as Matt and enjoy it. The novel I Became the Worst Student at Hunter School has two main characters, Oliver Hill, the main protagonist, and Bradley Anderson, who ends up in the body of a loser. Bradley takes advantage of the novel's plot and knowledge, and follows the path that was originally intended for the protagonist. On top of that, Bradley used his wealth to consume various elixirs, eventually gaining the upper hand over the protagonist's abilities. Caleb, who ended up in Matt's body, is different from them. He doesn't need to compete with them, and he is not their rival. He had no reason to get involved with them in the first place. The reason he wanted to become the protagonist was because he wanted to live comfortably. All this means that Caleb can work occasionally and enjoy life. In the original, when the portal goes out of control and the world is in crisis, Oliver and Bradley join forces to stop the great army of monsters. Crowds of people believe that these children can protect the world, that they are the last hope. And they try to support and encourage them with words, shouting like crowds of fans. And while these two are doing their job, Matt can live his life, invest in stocks, and increase the capital accumulated by his character. After all, Oliver and Bradley will cope and save the world in any case, and during battles, some actions can fail. Caleb can already feel the money flowing into his bank account, and see a future where he lives an easy life without worrying about money. Until the day the portals go out of control, he needs to live according to the plot. In the hunter world, Matthew is a B-rank hunter and a swordsmanship instructor. Caleb entered his body the moment he left the Chase Guild and took a job at the hunter school. Our hero studied all the information about Matt, including his contacts and bank accounts. In the process of studying the information, he discovered that Matt was a hopeless outsider. Caleb worked from home, so he had no interaction with colleagues. But Matt seemed to have voluntarily closed himself off from the rest of the world. In real life, our hero was often bullied at school. Children from wealthier families considered him the worst. In his past life, Caleb gave up many things, most notably love and marriage. He told people that he didn't care and that he was comfortable being alone, but that was complete nonsense. There were many reasons for refusing family life, difficulties with dating, lifestyle. The producer could pull me over even on a day off. But the main one was that he was a third-rate writer, barely making ends meet. Justice passed him by, making a big detour. But now everything will be different. Even if Caleb didn't end up in the protagonist's body, he still has a lot at stake. He is going to use the resources to do everything he never did in his past life. On his first day at work, Matthew walked into the staff room happily and introduced himself, hoping to find common ground with his new colleagues. However, in response, he received only an awkward silence, which made him feel uneasy. Matthew blushed. Perhaps he had overdone it a little with his joy and friendliness. But then one of the teachers spoke to him, introducing himself as Edward Murphy and offering to take the empty seat next to him. Our hero thanked him and said that he hoped for comfortable cooperation in the future. Two girls stuck their heads out from behind the next table and praised his handsome face. With such an appearance, he should have become an actor. Of course, Caleb literally paid for this face with his own life. They also found out that Matthew was a member of the Chase Guild, a very prestigious guild. From the praise, our hero already sees a future in which he will become popular. Another man joined the conversation, saying that their school had finally started hiring someone worthwhile. He introduced himself as Harry Yang. He teaches the second years the art of spearmanship, is a graduate of the 6th School of Hunters, and was formerly a member of the Hwarang Guild. Afterwards, Harry put his hand on Matt's shoulder and began to guess what school he graduated from. There were probably a lot of rumors about such a handsome guy. The girls also joined in the topic, assuming that the new teacher graduated from the 7th, and Harry put his bet on the 4th. If he had graduated from their school, someone would have definitely recognized him. So the second girl assumed that he was a graduate of the fifth. Matthew laughed awkwardly and said that he had not attended any hunting school. This news surprised the entire team, because how could he become a hunter in such a large guild? Maybe Matt studied abroad on an exchange program, or has dual citizenship. But no one believes that he has no relevant education at all. But he is not the only one. There are other good hunters who did not graduate from the hunting school, and our hero has only one citizenship. The disappointment was evident on the faces of his colleagues. They now looked at him as if he were empty space. Harry shook his hands as if he had touched something disgusting, and noted that this should have been said immediately. Then he headed towards the exit, decided to have a smoke before the meeting began, and the girls followed him. Before they even left the teacher's room, they began to discuss our hero, became encouraged by learning about the Chase Guild, and the new teacher turned out to be uneducated. Edward exhaled. It turns out the newcomer came on quota. Caleb is surprised that everything turned out this way. The system recognized Matt's emotions and evoked the corresponding memories. The most accurate way to determine the hunter factor is a kit containing biological fluids from the Salamis monster, costing $700. The director of the orphanage who stole the kits and reported that all the children had low scores has been arrested. After this, thanks to the help of one of the orphanage's residents, all the children passed the test again. Despite this, those from regular schools were prohibited from participating in hunting activities because their education was different. This inequality in abilities gave rise to a law discriminating against hunters who had not graduated from special schools, which made it possible to get a job regardless of education. Some government organizations allocate quotas for graduates of non-special schools, but the current situation does not meet their expectations, and the hatred towards them has become even stronger. When applying for a job, you should try not to tell your colleagues that you don't have a specialized education. If these memories had come a little earlier, Matt would have avoided a similar situation. One can understand the teacher's point of view, but nevertheless it is not fair. However, Edward is quite kind. He saw that Matt was hurt and hoped that he would understand. That was the situation. There is nothing to be done. For the sake of the future, our hero will have to come to terms with this and understand the position of the majority. A quota system for people who didn't graduate from hunting school should have worked better. Edward scratched his head in bewilderment and asked what quotas were being discussed. A minute of silence. Matt got this position by passing an exam and an interview. This is a hunting school after all. Quotas are not intended for students from special schools, and this is definitely not the case in such institutions. Other teachers had misunderstandings about the current situation with their new colleague. In the smoking room, disgruntled employees actively gossip about the newcomer, about how the school apparently doesn't have the money for a normal employee, and about how the first years won't have any luck with their mentor. Harry noted that the first years were mostly learning the basics and physical strength, so everything would be fine. But he is still a handsome man. But the ladies think that if a guy is handsome but did not graduate from a hunting school, then he is no good. Not going to hunter school is like graduating from an orphanage, pretty face, but no foundation. One of the girls suggested advising the children that in addition to lessons, they should independently study the art of swordsmanship. Children will finish school and risk their lives. They think that professionals should give lessons. Matthew just came up and heard them talking about him behind their backs. The girls felt awkward. Our hero pointed out the misunderstanding that had arisen and asked to devote some time to him before the meeting. You need to not react to provocations, restrain yourself and think about the future. He said in a reserved tone that they could continue to spread these rumors. But they were not true, and Matt was not hired under the quota. He wanted to tell them this, and hoped that they would work together in the future. Harry intervened in the conversation. It seemed that Matthew's teacher had misunderstood something. It doesn't matter to him how he got the job, through a quota or through connections. This is not the reason why they behave this way. The problem is what Matt has learned and what he hasn't. He asked not to rub it in that they are no different from a newbie. Harry noted that there were general education teachers at the school, and if a newcomer wanted to talk to someone, he should go to them. The girls also came to the conclusion that Matt must have cheated to get a B rank. Harry turned around smugly and told the newcomer that if he thought they were all wrong, he could apply for a duel. He would be promoted to A rank next month, so he recommended applying before his promotion. Now Caleb understands why Matthew Taylor was an outsider. When our hero showed his work to a friend during his lifetime, the friend almost always said that it turned out well. But then he said that his novella was not bad for an ordinary person, and it was worth forgetting about starting to publish. Caleb didn't graduate from any school or academy, unlike his friend, who constantly repeated that a career as a writer was not for him. After this conversation, that idiot published exactly the same work, and now his business is going well. And Caleb's work was subsequently called plagiarism, and everything went down the drain. Matthew has also faced many times with injustice. If you think about it, his life is not much different from the life of our hero. No matter how stable life is, it seems like there is no meaning in it at all. Just once. Caleb will do it just once. all for the sake of a comfortable life in the future. He stopped Harry and suggested that they have a duel to see who was stronger, a person with an education or a person with experience. Colleagues were surprised by such a statement because they underestimate the newcomer too much. A smug Harry decided that Matt only said that because his pride was hurt in front of the ladies, and suggested pretending that he hadn't heard anything. However, our hero assured that he was absolutely serious, and now to refuse would be to become a coward. In this world, when a dispute arises between hunters, a duel of honor helps resolve it. As a rule, the one who does not accept the challenge will suffer the greatest shame, even if the essence of the dispute is meaningless, or if someone's victory is obvious. They only look down on Matt because he didn't go to hunter school, so he'll prove he deserves to be treated properly through a duel. He also said that if Harry wishes, he can accept the challenge after the promotion. Teacher Yang, still overly confident, warned that one could die during the duel, and that he would not be held responsible for any injuries caused. But then our hero decided to change his polite tone and point out his opponent's big mouth. Perhaps this has something to do with the fact that he is an instructor in the art of spearmanship. Before leaving, Matt set a time and place, exactly 1 week later, next Friday, at the training ground. Harry didn't understand what the newcomer was counting on, but advised him to spend the whole week training. On this negative note, their dialogue ended, and they went to the meeting. After that, the whole day passed in a fog. The new teacher got to know his students. The students looked at Matt with envy and admiration. In addition to talent, he also had such an appearance. He was most worried about the sword lesson, but once he picked it up, everything was resolved. Along with Matthew Taylor's memories, his sword skills also returned. He easily showed his students the sequence of performing certain techniques. Moreover, everything went at the highest level. The children immediately understood everything and repeated after the instructor. Classes for first years are fairly simple, covering basic swordsmanship and physical training. But there was one problem. By midday, all the children were in a strange mood. During the lesson, the students could not restrain themselves and asked whether it was true that a duel would take place in a week. Rumors have already spread. It's not like Matt is surprised. Those two probably blabbed. The students continued to ask questions. It seems they are worried about the new teacher, since his opponent is an elite hunter. Matthew is sure that rumors that he did not attend hunter school have also already spread. And to be honest, he is not at all confident of his victory, but he has a whole week ahead to take action. He told his students that he was confident of his defeat, but with such mixed emotions that one can only guess what was going on in his head. The results will be known in a week, so now students should focus on their studies. If anyone asks Matt if this was a psychological tactic, he would be half right. It was the last vestiges of his morning confidence. Part of him was confident in his abilities. After work, our hero took the bus to Pobody Pass. Looking out the window, he thought that perhaps after today, a lot would change. If being a hunter and an elite education is all that's causing Harry Young's teacher to look down on him, then our hero should get some elite lessons too. He is going to go to the first location of the main character of the world of hunters, and get the secret of strengthening internal energy. While it may seem out of place in an academy novel, the first skill the main character masters is this technique. If his first step to increasing his power had been an item or an elixir, Bradley would have become suspicious when he found the item missing from its place. According to the plot, Bradley, knowing the original novel, follows the path of the main character Oliver and becomes stronger. Nothing will change if Matt also gets the skill. In any case, he has no goal to save the world, so he shouldn't become as strong as the protagonist. Matt just needs to get a little stronger to win the duel. Having made his way along a wild path in a cave, our hero reached that very portal. This portal is the first object of the hunter world. Behind it lies the secret of strengthening the internal energy. Matt took a hesitant step forward. This was his first time going through the portal. The feeling was strange. Having arrived on the other side, he came out into a winter forest, not knowing that according to the plot of the novella, this place would be exactly like this. The scenery is stunning, but now is not the time to admire the views. We need to get the hang of it. Suddenly Matthew felt danger from behind. It was too close. Somehow, at the last moment, our hero managed to dodge the attack. It all happened so quickly that he couldn't land on his feet. He fell face down into the snow. The old man who attacked from behind expressed his surprise that our hero was able to dodge. He put a sword to Matt's neck and asked him to introduce himself and say what sect he belonged to. The old man spoke Chinese, but for some reason our hero understood all the words. Apparently his character speaks this language. He said that he got to this place through a portal, and that he is a teacher at a school for hunters. But the old man doesn't seem to know about any of this, and lives in this forest like a hermit. Matthew pointed his finger at the portal, but the old man said that he saw only white snow around. He doesn't even remember how long he's been stuck in this place. He stopped counting the days after 30 years of being here. Instead of the secret of strengthening internal energy, this grandfather appeared before Matthew. Wait a minute though. He asked the old man if his name was Weidong by any chance, and received a positive answer. This grandfather is the person who must pass on the secret of strengthening internal energy to the main character. But it's strange, because when Oliver moved through the portal, Weidong wasn't there. At the site, he found only a will along with information on how to master the skill. Caleb wanted to send him 2 years before the start of the main plot. Our hero understands the situation, but he can't say that he read his name from a book. He said that he had heard his name in the past, and the grandfather asked what the boy had heard about him. It happened a long time ago. A story about a legendary swordmaster who suddenly disappeared during a battle with a ferocious dragon, who appeared out of nowhere and brought trouble to a huge number of people. It was this grandfather who was the hero of that story. Caleb simply repeated what he had read in a book, and the old man relaxed his guard a little. Weidong is probably very proud of his martial arts, so our hero will act in this direction. Matthew fell to his knees and begged to be trained. He said that he was not a villain, and had come to this place in search of absolute mastery. However, the old man refused and advised him to return home if he valued his life. Then our hero raised his head and said that he was about to fight against the spearmaster. Sword and spear, he asked the old man who he thought would win the upcoming duel. Spears are superior to short swords, and with proper training, a spear can become a deadly weapon. The old man said that length is a destructive force and will undoubtedly defeat the spear. But to our hero's surprise, he quickly accepted the sword's defeat. But Matthew can't leave so easily. Weidong told him a story and was about to run off into the sunset. He hit the snowy ground with his fist, shouting that he supposedly knew it. He knew that a sword could not defeat a spear, but he thought that he would find another answer here. Our hero added that he has a battle in front of a huge crowd next week, and that he must get back and start training hard. But how can you do this, knowing in advance that victory is not in sight? Maybe you should just refuse, but then he will be humiliated. And what can you say to the spearmaster? Perhaps the sword in front of his spear is just a branch, or even a toothpick. Then the old man turned around and said that they had only discussed which weapon was stronger, but it was unknown how good its owner was. After all, the king's sword is so strong that it can cut an entire dragon in half. Matt comparing a spear to a sword while standing in front of Weidong was a reason to cut off his head. However, the old man said that he would help him, so be it. But our hero's tears are just manipulation. He raised his head and thanked the great swordsman. Finally, Weidong would share his secret. But the old man decided to give Matt something better. He quickly approached and pressed his fingers on various points of the body. It was as if lightning ran through our hero's body, and it felt as if he had been beaten with truncheons. Weidong said that the boy was very weak. He introduced a small amount of pure yang energy into his body, which would dissolve in him in 4 days, and Matt would feel the changes. The old man doesn't know how strong his opponent is, but if our hero is good in himself, he will emerge from the battle unbeaten. This is not the great opportunity of the main character of the novel. Matt wanted to find out from the old man, but Weidong ordered to go home and return when he won, and proved that the sword was stronger than the spear. All the same, he would not go anywhere from this forest. A week later, Matthew took to the training ground against Harry Young. The audience, the school staff, and colleagues gathered in the hall, of course thinking that their newcomer would spend the week wisely and find a new job. Matthew suggested to his opponent that they not waste time on talking and immediately begin fighting. Harry decided to give our hero a head start and let him attack first. Of course, the spear has an obvious advantage. Matt thanked him for this, but he shouldn't regret it in the future. Our hero's body feels so light, he has become strong enough not to be beaten. Even if Matt is carried out on a stretcher after the duel, he does not intend to live the life of a coward. Gathering his strength into the sword, he jumped at the enemy, not intending to kill, but only swung the sword, barely touching. Matt cut off some of Harry's hair and clothes, and the entire audience saw Teacher Yang's funny underwear. None of his colleagues expected the duel to end so quickly, because he was far from the weakling in their team. It seemed that Harry did not get up more from fear and surprise than from the injuries, or he realized that there was no point in continuing and gave up. And Matt himself did not expect such a difference in strength. The referee declared the duel over, and the winner was teacher Matthew Taylor. Weidong said that when the energy dissolved in his body, he would feel changes and would emerge from the battle unbeaten. Crazy old man Matt only wanted to beat the average teacher, and such a blow would definitely attract unwanted attention. The main character of the novel, Bradley Anderson, studies martial arts and his skills grow by leaps and bounds. Of course, partly because he drinks elixirs like water. Matt became too strong after one encounter with the old man. Teacher Edward Murphy ran headlong to find out if their newcomer was injured, although there was no indication that he was. It was all amazing and fast, he just couldn't see what happened. Matthew disappeared for a second, and then everyone saw Harry's underwear. Apparently, all the teachers saw our hero as an ordinary teacher of general education subjects, and Teacher Murphy was so happy. Apparently he had something against Teacher Yang. In any case, he is glad that the newcomer is safe and sound. Such an event cannot go unnoticed, so Edward treats everyone. As Harry was carried away on a stretcher, other colleagues began to flock to the treat. The ladies, who were close friends with Teacher Jan, were dissatisfied with the result and went home. But the rest of us had a fun evening at the karaoke bar, chatted and met Matthew. And once we had a drink, we went to sing songs, It just so happened that our hero's vocal skills were not as good as his fighting skills. Friday evening, they walked until late, and then went home. Matthew returned home only at 4 in the morning. A normal person would have a severe hangover after drinking all that. However, our hero's body cleansed itself while he was sleeping, so he gained many more physical skills than he originally planned. In this situation, he could not help but visit the one who had changed his body so much. The next day, Matthew took the bus to Victory Pass again. He didn't think he would return to this place again, but he had to thank the old man, because he was alive only thanks to him. Weidong said that he couldn't leave this place through the portal. There weren't even any animals in the forest. It was too harsh for the fictional world of the novel. When Matthew found the old man meditating on a rock, he immediately heard footsteps behind him. He turned around and asked with a serious face how the duel with the Spearmaster ended. Matthew said that he killed him with one blow, and his opponent left the battlefield in disgrace. Our hero said that in his world that man is well known, and therefore he wants to ask what happened to his body that day. Weidong replied that he had only slightly opened the path to the Dantian energy, so that Matthew would at least emerge from the battle alive. He asked what martial art our hero used, and how great was the inner strength of his opponent. The old man was just getting bored and just wanted to chat, but his questions made Matthew realize something. Weidong placed his bet on him, and the first fight was something like a test of the future student's abilities. Bradley opened the way to Dantian with the help of various spiritual elixirs, and Matt did everything himself, but he had to admit that he did not study martial arts. Weidong noticed that the path to Dantian was blocked, but he was sure that he felt traces of knowledge, and those were just sword skills. In the world of Marima, warriors increase their internal strength through martial arts. But for hunters, it works differently. The more you train, the more mana is generated in the body. Matthew asked the old man if he remembered where he was from. Weidong was born in the Ming Empire. Their emperor was Guangming. Hunters have only recently started appearing, and Weidong came from a completely different world, so he is not aware of what is happening outside. Matthew is interested in history, so he knew about him, the legendary swordsman Weidong. Our hero told him that martial arts no longer exist in the outside world. It's been a long time since the Ming Empire existed, and the world is now ruled by another power. So martial arts are being forgotten more and more every year. Matthew preferred this explanation, because he decided that it would be better than saying that this was a completely different world. But the old man was upset, because of his long stay in this place. The sense of time was completely dulled, and apparently much more time had passed than he thought. Now he seems more lonely than usual, but Bradley will come soon and become his friend, and Matthew gave him a gift from the outside world, a health-boosting medicine. Perhaps this will console him a little. Weidong took the sachet out of the bag and began to eat its contents. At first it seemed that he was quite pleased with the gift, but when he tasted it, his face twisted violently. Apparently the healthy stuff tasted terrible. The old man assumed that there was some kind of leprosy circulating in the outside world, since people had to take care of their health with such disgusting means. He began to talk about how, when he was young, they would swing swords and eat 50-year-old wild ginseng as a side dish. But there was also something sweet in Matthew's backpack. At first the old man refused, because he was not a little child. But our hero still got out the chocolate and said that in the outside world they eat it when it's cold. But in his forest it seems to always be like that. Weidong agreed to try it. He had never eaten modern sweets, so from the first bite he was overcome with pleasure. When the bar was finished, the old man said it was quite edible and told Matthew to bring more. Our hero took out of his backpack a whole bag of food that he took with him on the road. The old man, out of joy, decided to try all kinds of modern culinary achievements at once. But Matthew is surprised, because it is an expensive pleasure. A whole package for one meal. Weidong ate all the supplies. Before that, he had not eaten anything for many years, because after he became a master, he did not need it. He simply tasted the food. And then the old man asked if there was anything else interesting in the backpack. But it seems that food was able to distract him from his feelings of loneliness. And that's good. Then Weidong stood up. According to the stories, the Ming dynasty sank into oblivion, and monsters appeared in the world. Murimo's place was taken by hunters, and the old man dreamed only of ascension after entering this forest. Since Matthew now has the path to Dantian open, he is considered the only martial artist. The difference in strength between those who have mastered martial arts and those who have not is enormous. Therefore, the old man is interested in how his new student will now use this power. But Matthew planned to live a normal life, although he liked the fact that he didn't have a hangover from drinking too much alcohol. He decided that it would be useful if he had to get up early and his back wouldn't hurt after sitting for a long time playing games. Weidong was surprised, but remembered that he didn't even ask his new acquaintance's name, and Matthew introduced himself. The old man thought that this boy was just a teacher teaching children the basics, and would hardly do anything stupid if he received his knowledge and power. He said out loud again that he was the Sword King Weidong, the sword master who killed the dragon and saved the empire. Matt already knew all this. But then the old man said he wanted to take Matthew Taylor as a student and bring back martial arts. This offer is a great honor for our hero. The king of the sword himself considered him worthy. However, without thinking twice, Matthew refused, because he does not strive to become strong and fight monsters. Weidong didn't expect such an answer. He didn't think that a hunter, even a simple teacher, would refuse such knowledge. It may have been a misunderstanding, but no. Matthew is grateful for what he got, but he doesn't need more. The old man helped our hero get through the crisis, so he can return to his quiet life. If he were to become his disciple, Matthew would have the world at his feet, but Weidong sees his unwavering gaze. And so they said goodbye. Our hero will go home, and the old man will prepare for ascension. It seemed to him that before death, he would be able to leave at least something. Matthew thought that according to the plot, at some point Weidong will have to leave this world. Ascension is possible if one reaches a certain level of enlightenment, mastery, and virtue. He had already achieved mastery, gained virtue by helping Matthew, a little enlightenment, and he would be there. And then he said that he wouldn't even have to leave anything behind. Our hero decided to hint that it was necessary to leave records of knowledge. But the old man was stubborn. Why leave them if no one would read them? Martial arts had long been forgotten. Matthew didn't even think about the fact that Weidong might not leave behind books and a will, as was the case in the plot. With his arrival in this place, a hole may form in the plot of the novel. If there are no records, then Bradley will not reach the starting point. This means that he will never start a rivalry with Oliver, and Oliver in turn will have no reason to become stronger. As a result, when the monsters attack, these two will not be able to defend themselves, and the world will be destroyed. Matthew thought it was just an event in a novel, but how wrong he was. Our hero decided to fix the situation and accept the offer to become the old man's disciple. Because if the world is destroyed, then Caleb will also return to hell. He changed his mind so quickly, under the pretext that he wanted martial arts to continue to live. He must accept the knowledge offered. Only then will Matthew be able to live happily in this world. And our hero also decided to bribe Weidong a little, promising to bring him sweets from the outside world every time he came to him. The old man immediately bought in and showed his wild desire to give lessons that would be difficult. Now Matthew will have to sacrifice his personal time. There is no other way. After the Duel of Honor, the entire school was in an uproar. Everyone was talking about how an instructor who had not graduated from the School of Hunters defeated a spearmaster. The duel also involved the teachers of general education and those required for hunters. No wonder Teacher Murphy was so happy that day. The opinion of the teachers of combat disciplines changed, because before they could not even imagine that among uneducated hunters, there were people with such skills. Looking at Matthew Taylor's performance, opinions changed, and there were also rumors that he did not ask for anything for winning the duel. Everyone decided that our hero even had an angelic character. But he was so concerned about the working conditions in the team that he forgot to indicate the award. However, the looks of respect from those around him are damn nice in themselves. He is one step closer to the life he dreamed of. Matthew plans to visit Weidong on weekends and focus on his own life on weekdays. When our hero entered the classroom during the first lesson, the first years stood up in unison. And then, on command from the headman, they gave a very loud greeting, and now the students were filled with respect for their new teacher. The guys bombarded Matthew with questions about how he did it. They heard about the results. The students don't have access to this information, but one of their brothers is a high school teacher. Children don't need to know everything, but in his heart, our hero is of course pleased with such rumors. The conversations ended, and the study of theory began. Unlike his past life, Matthew has a good job and a healthy body. He will carefully preserve his happiness and the stable life he has acquired. Several working hours had already passed since he had been enjoying life. It's finally time to fight for what's really important in this life. Opposite stands an insensitive slave of the system, strictly following all the rules. But what is truly dear is worth fighting for by all means. Unable to withstand the threatening gaze of his opponent, the slave of the system almost gave in. And now he is broken. The tasty sausages are won in a fair fight for them. It looks like today is Matthew's happiest day. He got both respect and sausages. It looks like the beginning of popularity. Before he could even start eating, a noisy and sociable girl sat down next to him. The most important thing that Matthew noticed first was the mountain of sausages on her tray. The girl already knows about him well, which is not surprising, since he has become the main object of gossip. There are no CCTV cameras in this place, so she suggested that we address each other informally. The girl acts as if they already know each other. But when meeting familiar people, Matt's memories should emerge that are not there now. She looked at his expression and said that she would be a little upset if he didn't recognize her. However, Matthew had seen Sora's name somewhere before. It seemed she was listed as a colleague in his list of conflicts. Our hero has no idea what to do now or what to say, because she already realized that he doesn't recognize her. He decided to address her by name and see what would happen next. The girl was happy, saying that it was not surprising, because she had changed a lot since their last meeting. Sora never thought that they would both become teachers, and in the same school at that. It was definitely her contact on the phone, but for some reason the memories didn't appear. Sora, one of the teachers of the class where the main character of the novel studies, is one of the key characters in the second volume. This woman is a member of the international criminal organization Antagonists. As soon as our hero began to think about this, memories finally appeared. The Antagonists, an organization opposed to the Hunters, they destroyed countless numbers of them. The organization is a group of people with outstanding physical skills who act quickly and accurately, and therefore are virtually elusive. Sora asked Matthew what was wrong with his face. She said that they could act normally here. Nothing had happened. It's all so weird. Caleb read the novella to the end, and there was no information about his character being a member of the Antagonists. A new chapter of memories opened. From this moment, the story of Matthew's killer begins. This does not correspond to his expectations of the ideal quiet life of a teacher. Caleb read the novella to the end. There was no way he would have missed a mention of something like that. Perhaps it is because in an interview with the writer, it was said that he was working on a sequel, in which moments not mentioned in the main story will be written. Most likely, this is the very moment that was not mentioned in the first book. While working at the guild, Matthew had a friend named Sam, who was the one who reported the director of the orphanage where they both grew up. 2 years ago, they were returning together after another mission in the portal on Mount Quannock, when suddenly the portal exploded and various monsters began to appear from it. They immediately contacted the guild members, but everyone was busy with another incident, and Matthew and Sam did not receive help. The two of them had to fight against monsters that were beyond the boy's strength. That day Matthew lost the person dearest to him. Sam was like a brother to him. When it was all over, the guild announced that they couldn't afford to send help. The city was also plagued by monsters at the time, so they decided to sacrifice 2 low-ranking hunters. However, Matthew knew that it was all about discrimination, since he and his friend came from a regular school. After learning the true reason, he decided to apply for a transfer abroad, and upon returning a year later, he decided to leave the guild. But at that moment, Sora appeared and offered to join the Antagonists. Matthew fell in love and immediately joined the organization, even donating funds for their benefit. He confessed his feelings but was rejected. In order to remain cool, he decided to stay in the organization and continues to sponsor it. And in order to get closer to Sora, he decided to enroll in the same school. This idiot did this kind of crap instead of avenging his brother. Caleb thought that happy days had finally come for him, but it turns out that he is now a member of a criminal organization. Sora knows what skills Matthew has, but getting into the hunter school is quite difficult. She thought it would take him at least 2 years. However, this character passed the interview on the first try. It seems he likes this girl very much, but it's not clear yet what's going on with school life. The semester has just begun. Sora asked why Matthew hadn't contacted her all this time. Hadn't even written that he'd gotten the job. It's good that he didn't call her, otherwise he could have made a mistake in communication. Then she asked about donations, because this month he had not transferred money as he usually did. Our hero is no longer the lovesick fool, and he's not going to let anyone rob him. It turned out that no one was insisting. He had already donated enough, and besides, teachers' salaries were not that high. Matthew is an idiot. I wonder how much money he spent on this charity. She said that the organization is aware of his situation, and she is also confident that his rating will rise since he defeated a hunter who was almost A rank. Typically in academy novels, the criminal organizations hiding on campus have one goal in mind: terrorism. However, despite being antagonists, they do not kill people without reason. They also don't touch the school's students, since they are not full-fledged hunters. Most likely, Sora's role is to lure young people into the organization. He makes these assumptions based on the memories he saw. It is unknown what other secrets might be in the extra chapters. Our hero asked the girl what he should do, to which she replied, "Get used to school and make friends." However, he had in mind the organization's plans, because that way he would understand what needed to be done to achieve the goal. After finishing her meal, Sora stood up from the table, saying that this was only temporary. He was the only one in high school, so everything would be fine. She suggested seeing each other more often, for example, the last Tuesday of every month for dinner. And then she left, saying goodbye, leaving a whole bunch of questions unanswered. I wonder what she meant when she said that all this is temporary, and what will happen when time runs out. I didn't even wait for her to agree to my proposal. Well, Matthew will come on Tuesday, at least to find out what's going on. Our hero went to another world for the weekend. Training with Weidong began smoothly. He decided to record Matt's progress as a newbie, and it was an honor for our hero to learn his martial arts knowledge. The old man helped him open the way to Dantian, but now he has to figure out what to do on his own. From now on, you can't relax and rest. You need to focus on the circulation of internal energy throughout the body. The old man tells you to concentrate, but he himself chatters and even hits you hard without hearing an answer. And he says that the fact that Matthew can't concentrate is not his problem. Somehow he is able to see energy, and the fact that his student's energy is interrupted indicates anxiety. Circulation of energy should be as natural as breathing. Matthew said that something was really bothering him, and the old man offered to listen and share his wisdom. Our hero asked what Weidong thought when he looked at him, whether he was good or bad. And this is where the wisdom apparently ended, because the old man cannot know such a thing. According to Weidong, Matthew's life is worthless now, just like a man who asks the king of the underworld to grant him beauty in the next life. If he does good, then he is good, and vice versa. The presence of strength defines a person. According to the law of the mountains and forest of swords, during a battle, the strongest survives, and the loser is recorded in history as evil. All those who caused trouble in the past were short-lived. Without power, good and evil are just an illusion. This answer can be partly considered help, but it is not selfless. The price is a chocolate bar. Weidong's words truly touched the strings of our hero's soul and brought out some thoughts. Matthew's dream is to live a long, comfortable life while making money from stocks. Terrorism, murder, and revenge do not interest him at all. He does not want to die trying to somehow influence the world. On the last Tuesday of the month, Sora noticed that Matthew didn't seem to particularly want to spend it with her. She asked him about it, but our hero also wants to say something on this matter. Having gathered his strength a little, he announced that he wanted to leave the antagonist organization. The girl stopped eating and showed great surprise on her face. But the next moment she attacked him right in the restaurant hall, armed with a fork. Such actions attracted the attention of all the visitors who were dining in the same establishment. Matthew knew she wouldn't like the idea, but he didn't expect this reaction. Sora asked him to explain everything properly, otherwise she would make holes in him. First, she should get it off his face, and maybe they should change locations. Sitting in a crowded place, they attract too much unwanted attention. People decided that it was a matter of betrayal and a family quarrel between a pair of hunters. Matthew invited her to walk to his car so he could show her something. They went somewhere together. Sora was irritated. He said that he would explain everything, but they had to go somewhere. However, Matthew doesn't think she'll believe him so easily, so he asks her to be patient for a little while. The girl took a fork with her so that she would have something to threaten our hero with. She forced him to start explaining on the road. He said that he initially joined the organization only because he was discriminated against. But working at the school changed everything. But Sora doesn't believe that one victory in a duel could influence his opinion. This event is certainly one of the reasons, but it is not the only one. He realized that he didn't have to be in the organization to become stronger. Plus, the antagonists were too radical. The organization's worldview is too different from Matthew's beliefs. He does not support terrorism and killing people. Sora reminded that she had spoken about this from the very beginning. It is not they who are engaged in terrorism, but the government. She also said that the people they kill deserve it. But Matt is convinced that everything in the world is arranged a little differently. In fact, our hero does not do anything like that, so the girl decided that he was simply afraid of receiving such a task. Of course he is afraid, and he is no less afraid of a fork held to his neck. Our hero made an attempt to ask for it to be removed. She slowly pulled her hand away, calling him a coward, disappointment evident in her voice. Matthew knew that it would not be easy to leave the criminal organization, so he had time to prepare. He asked Sora to read the news on the internet about the murder of the deputy director of the Hunter administration. At first, she said that this was how it was supposed to happen. This man stole millions from the state budget. But as she continued reading, she saw that another person died as a result of the staged accident. The driver of the car had lost his wife a long time ago, and all this time he lived alone with his daughter. He did not have a permanent job, but sometimes he worked part-time in the administration of hunters. This man obviously had nothing to do with the deputy's corruption, but he left after him. The most popular heroine of the novel, Isabel, who finds herself in a love triangle with the main characters, is the daughter of the deceased driver. The antagonists exposed the deputy director's corruption and claimed that they had killed him. The reaction of the people was serious. Some supported the actions of the organization, but the death of an innocent person remained in the shadows. Having gathered herself, Sora expressed her confidence that this was a mistake. The antagonist's charter states that it is forbidden to harm the people. Matthew feels obliged to ask her if she seriously believes this. After all, that driver may not be the only victim who accidentally ended up near the organization's target. Our hero thinks that she already understands all this perfectly well. She just deliberately closed her eyes. It seems that everything worked out, and from today, he can spread his wings into the world of a carefree life. Suddenly, Sora asked Matthew if he knew the reason why she rejected him when he confessed his feelings. Our hero wanted to avoid this conversation, since he was not interested in it at all. But the fork returned to its place, and he will have to listen with pleasure. 15 years ago, there was a mass portal outbreak, and Sora's parents died during that incident. It must have been hard for her. But what that has to do with Matthew is a mystery that you have to listen to understand. If the hunters had arrived, they could have saved them. And besides, her area had the most open portals. They were the ones who needed help the most, and the Hunters Association was located just a short distance away. However, despite all these circumstances, none of them came. There was no one. In one of the elite areas, only 3 portals appeared. and more than a dozen elite teams of hunters from the largest guilds were there. It all happened in the same way as with Matthew when his brother Sam died. But if this really happened, the public would be outraged. The incident did not make it into the press, as the people responsible were able to shut their mouths with money. If the girl had not conducted the investigation herself, she would never have found out the truth. After all this, Sora decided to forget about all feelings and focus on revenge. This was the reason for the refusal. Suddenly, she offered to start dating her after she took revenge, and in her emotions, she almost stabbed him with a fork. No parent would want their child to join a terrorist organization and live for revenge. If the real Matthew were here, he would definitely help her. But Caleb doesn't have any feelings for her. She is quite beautiful and sweet. But besides her, there are plenty of other beautiful women in the world. Our hero thought that he just needed to apologize to Sora and go straight to his happy life. He read the novel, so he knows the future, and has already figured out the problem of the main characters. Now all that's left is to deal with the girl and the antagonist's organization, and his life will be a piece of cake. But for some reason, some strange feeling won't leave me. Instead of memories, something else happened. It was as if Matthew himself had come to Caleb to ask him not to abandon his beloved in trouble. For a moment, due to the vision, our hero lost control, but managed to steer in time. Both he and the passenger were very scared at that moment. They could have died. After that, Sora said that she would remove the fork. After all, the steering wheel was in his hands. Our hero asked her if she knew who she was going to take revenge on. At the time, the director of the Hunters administration was a man named Isaac, but it was most likely not he who gave orders to the Hunters that day. If he was in such a position at that time, then he has probably risen higher up the career ladder now. She asked if Matthew would remain with the organization until the culprit was punished for his negligence, but was refused. However, our hero will help her take revenge, although even the members of the organization said that this is not an easy matter. Most likely, the antagonists do not intend to make this task a priority. They are simply keeping Sora with promises. At this time, Isaac holds the position of a member of the National Assembly, a character our hero has already read about. According to the plot, he was on the rise until he met the main character of the novel. 3 years later, the protagonist will expose Sora as a member of the organization, and she will have to stand trial. As far as Caleb remembers, she was not executed, but she received a life sentence without parole. She's still trying to prove that if she does missions for the organization, they'll eventually help her. But Matthew has reiterated with confidence that they won't do anything. He knows her future very well, but unfortunately, he cannot say it directly. So Matthew gave her a condition. He would help her get revenge, but she would leave the antagonists with him. Being in the organization, she will not be able to take revenge. They will definitely not help her. He knew that Sora would stand her ground, so she would change her mind once she was there. They are directed to one of the antagonist organization's funding sources. Matthew and Sora are about to buy illegal substances from their dealer. They pulled up to a building in Chinatown, but the establishment was already closed. Therefore, after getting out of the car, the girl doubted that the place was right. However, despite the fact that this is Matthew's first time here, he is sure that it is here. At first glance, the establishment they entered seemed completely ordinary. But this was not the case. Hidden deep in the dark streets, the dry cleaners are actually one of the antagonist organization's shops that sell illegal substances. But the owner won't tell strangers about this, so you need to somehow gain his trust. While Matthew was trying to convince the dealer that he was not a government agent, he pulled out a large cleaver from under the table. The owner of the laundry put it to our hero's throat and said that he only deals in wholesale sales, after which he asked him to leave. But when Matthew said that Malin had sent him, the dealer dropped the knife in fear. But of course the stories about meeting this woman in China are lies. Mei-Ling, the daughter of the Chinese boss of the antagonist organization, and also the head of the Genesis branch, a synthetic substance developed by their branch. Of course, Matthew can't know such an important person. He just needs to convince Sora of her mistaken opinion. He suggested that the dealer call her himself and ask her about it, but then he would have to pay for his doubts. The dry cleaner's manager apologized and assured that he would get everything ready immediately. They had been communicating in Chinese the entire time, so Sora didn't understand anything at all. Matthew explained that they were selling substances made in China, and he thought she would believe it if she saw it in person. Of course, the girl didn't know anything. Information about Genesis emerges after the main character encounters the antagonist organization in Chinatown, after which the local Korean representative office of the organization appears. Having learned about the situation, they ask the Chinese for a percentage of sales on their territory. So a dispute arises between the two branches, and then the main character of the novel, the Apostle of Justice, appears and destroys everyone. Matthew suggested asking the dealer to speak their native language so that Sora would understand what was going on. Since they had just started working in the market, there was little merchandise hidden in the dry cleaner's storerooms. This should be enough for a month. The dealer hoped that our hero would put in a good word for him with Malin, and also change the language, making sure that the girl behind his back could know this. Matthew told him that she was also hanging out on Genesis. The dealer looked at her suspiciously, perhaps deciding that she was too decent and neat to be a drug addict. Sora, without thinking for long, made a crazy expression and approved of his product. The dealer offered to reduce her dosage, and Matthew barely suppressed his laughter, then said that he had heard that the next batch was coming soon. And I received a positive response, although it will take some time to deliver the goods across the border. It would be faster to fly to China and pick up the goods directly from Mrs. Mailing. But the conversation itself does not inspire confidence in Sora, because they could have put on a show for her. Besides, it was unlikely that she had heard of the Chinese branch, Chinatown, or Mailing. The dealer warned that he does not accept cards, only cash. Matthew suggested paying the money in installments over 3 months, but the dealer did not agree, and they do not offer installment plans. During training, Old Man Weidong said that if you hit your opponent with your fist, it will hit the hippocampus in the temporal lobe. Then this boa constrictor will cause memory loss, and ask to use this method if necessary. And if you are not sure whether the blow worked, you need to try to feel if there is internal bleeding. Now we need to make sure that Sora understood everything and does not consider what she saw and heard to be a performance. Our hero said that he joined the organization for a similar reason, but he needed to understand what kind of place it was. While working in China, he learned that the antagonists were involved in the production and distribution of illegal substances, although he actually learned about this after reading the 3rd volume. It looked like this man was trading alone, but just in case, it was better to leave quickly. Matthew won't report it to the police. Most likely the organization will simply replace the dealer, so nothing will affect the change in the future. The girl believed that this was true, so she informed the organization about our hero's departure. However, she didn't say anything about leaving. It seems she decided to stay. Sora has been in the organization for a long time. She has missions, and she knows a lot of things, so if she leaves, she won't be left alone. Antagonists are not some school club that you can join and leave at will. Matthew's subconscious was begging Caleb not to leave his beloved, so he needed to help somehow. But if Sora leaves the organization, it will greatly affect the future. According to the plot, her identity will eventually be revealed to the main character. At the moment, there are no missions among hers that could land her in jail. She only recruits students with talents. But this takes too much time, so the girl hasn't really done anything yet. Matthew suggested that she become a double agent from now on, collecting dirt to get away with it in the future. In the end, she will be a person who carried out minor assignments for the organization and did not commit any crimes. At this time, Sora has no information that could help the police. Therefore, it is necessary to obtain it, because if problems arise, everything will testify against it. The organization might take more drastic measures. Matthew changed the subject, so Sora decided that he really liked him. He wouldn't have helped if he didn't like her, let her think what she wants. But he'll return to the city on his own. Our hero will leave her here, as he wants to stop somewhere before returning home. The girl thought that this was manipulation to attract attention, as if now Matthew would play hard to get. After saying goodbye, our hero went to the portal to visit Old Man Weidong. Instead of greeting him, he said that his student had arrived quite late. He also noticed that his clear gaze had returned, which meant that things were going well in the outside world. However, you will still have to accept punishment for being late. Perhaps the old man will make the training more difficult. But Matthew was in Chinatown today, so he reached for his backpack. As an apology, he brought bamboo liquor to the teacher. But since they were going to have a tough training session, he shouldn't drink it. Seeing the bottle, Weidong noticed that today was actually his day off. This old man is quite easy to lure to the other side with tasty treats. He also comes from another world's China, which is not very different in culture, so the food from Chinatown reminds him of his homeland. It seems that if his excitement had been a little stronger, he would have definitely beaten up the student. But is everything okay with him? Matthew was always trying to shirk training, and today he works. Despite the declared day off, it will not be surprising if the sun becomes square. But Matthew simply thanked her for the advice that had helped him, and suggested that he continue to enjoy the treats he had bought as a token of his gratitude. While helping Sora, he didn't know what dangers he would face. Therefore, our hero wants to become stronger in case of unforeseen situations, since the story about her being a double agent will not appear in the plot. Matthew is now strong enough to defeat a hunter of almost A rank. But if you have to deal with such a big shot as Maylene, the outcome could be very sad. Our hero completely forgot that in fact he is just a B-rank swordsmanship instructor. Helping someone in their situation is an overwhelming burden, but that's just for now. Bradley's first opportunity is a book containing a skill for strengthening internal energy. Bradley begins to hone the contents of the secret book by pouring various elixirs into himself, thereby becoming stronger. Unlike him, who took time, the path to Dantian Matthew was opened directly. If you think about it, the strongest in this world is grandfather. By continuing to study with Weidong, our hero will be able to protect himself no matter what happens. Suddenly the old man called out to the student, distracting him from his training. He had run out of ramen. He asked me to buy him a few packs and grab some noodles with black sauce, and don't forget the chips. The main thing is patience, because this glutton is the strongest creature in this world. Matthew continued to meditate, trying to get to know the energy within himself. Meanwhile, the teacher was making another batch of noodles and finishing the snacks, constantly rustling the bags. Besides the sounds, the delicious aromas of food are no less distracting from concentration. But when Matthew asked him to stop, his grandfather merely offered to share. Last time our hero bought a whole box, now he understands why everything ended so quickly. But Weidong is always alone in this forest and eats out of boredom, at least some variety in everyday life. And anyway, why is the kid yelling? He hasn't been hungry for several hundred years. It's good that Matthew has motivation, but if he rushes, all his efforts will be in vain. But it would be better if Weidong devoted more time to the learning process. Our hero does not feel any progress over the past month. The old man asked to remember that one should not rush to become great. But it is foolish to deny that he devotes more time to ramen than to studies. If he's not going to train Matthew properly, maybe he has some tricks up his sleeve. Maybe he's going to give him an elixir or something. But for such proposals, our hero got hit on the head, and Weidong even praised him. Only a month has passed, and Matthew is already waiting for results. With such power, it will not be possible to unite the world. If he continues to be stubborn, he won't have to wait long for more. Martial arts are not something you can rush into. Weidong would never neglect his studies by distracting himself with food. However, the old man became scared when Matthew said that food prices had risen, and he would no longer be able to buy it. And this is not blackmail at all. Our hero is telling everything as it really is. And it won't be possible to buy noodles in black sauce. And the chips he bought are popular. It will be difficult to get even one pack. It seems that Weidong has not fully seen the enthusiasm of his textbook. From now on, he intends to stay close to him and teach him everything properly. Therefore, Matthew will try his best to get the food that his mentor likes. The next day at lunchtime, our hero received a message from Sora that he had managed to safely leave the antagonist organization. It may be that Matthew's character will come up with something else that Caleb didn't have time to read about while he was alive. But once he helps Sora deal with her problems, he will surely be able to live a peaceful life. Colleagues Maya and Aya invited Matthew to go with them to lunch in the canteen and then go to the assembly hall together. Our hero completely forgot what the director said at the morning meeting. The teachers were going to give interviews for the school channel, so he forgot about it, thinking about his problems. Besides, Matthew will be performing first because he has a good image. If the interview is successful, our hero will also receive bonuses. Maya handed him a list of questions for Matthew to look at over lunch. The director will check the video before publishing it on the channel, so you need to try hard. Having finished the conversation, the girls quickly ran to the dining room before everything cooled down. Maya returned, forgetting to say something else. She will conduct the interview together with the student council president. They will ask questions written in the script, but the student council president is a bit of a weirdo and might ask something weird. She is not an ordinary person, and if something does not go according to plan, there is no need to worry. In his time, the student council president was something of a mythical creature, and Matthew can't wait to meet her. Which is mutual, because there are rumors about our hero at school too. She is interested in what the swordsmanship instructor who defeated Harry is like. Most of the students of hunting schools live in dormitories. They spend most of their time at school, but go home for the holidays. Of course, parents are often interested in the school life of their children. They say that for safety reasons they are not allowed to leave the dorms on weekends. Many people believe that hunter schools greatly restrict the freedom of students, so the administration solved this problem by opening a channel on YouTube. Of course, the innovation was not implemented immediately, and their school was used as a guinea pig. There was no mention of a YouTube channel in the novel, so Matthew thought that this moment would disappear on its own. But no. Upon entering the assembly hall, our hero was met by leading technical specialist Courtney. Matthew told her that he was giving an interview for the first time, so he was a little nervous, and also appreciated that she also did the editing. Although she had no choice, it was a direct request from the director, since her skills were the most suitable for this out of all the staff. Of course, this is not paid, so everyone wants to finish everything quickly and go home, but they hope for bonuses. Maya and Aya had already set everything up, and the student council president arrived just in time. Courtney waved her hand, informing her that everything was ready for filming, and that the only thing missing was her. A beautiful tall girl, the student council president named Velma, approached them. She looks confident. Anyone who looks at her will decide that she is the president. Matthew is surprised that this particular character is not mentioned at all in the novella. She has excellent social skills, looks quite normal, and doesn't show any of the oddities that Maya was talking about. Everyone took their seats. Courtney set up the camera and started recording. Velma and Maya began talking to their first subject. The interview started off smoothly, with the girls continuing to compliment his looks, from which the tension quickly subsided and the atmosphere became cozy. And when the questions ended, Maya wanted to say goodbye. She changed that she delayed him, because today everyone had no classes after lunch. Matthew was pleased to hear the closing speech, which must mean that the interview was coming to an end. He asked not to apologize for the delay, but then added that he would still go ask the school to pay for overtime. After this, Courtney decided that she would also make a request for additional payment. However, before Matthew could leave for home, Velma caught him saying what he had said. He was sorry that the interview had to end, and the viewers would probably be sorry too if it ended like this. Velma has made a sudden request. She wants to duel with the school's rising star. Aya and Courtney were expecting something unexpected from the student council president, but they didn't expect this. Matthew thought it would just be questions and answers. Apparently this is the eccentric side of Velma that Maya warned about. The student council president is so clever at getting out of all the warnings that it looks like our hero will have to do it. Velma has long had a passion for duels, and Matthew is teaching swordsmanship. Our hero doesn't sense any bad intentions in this challenge, so he agreed to film the final part. It seemed that Velma didn't really expect to agree right now, since her opponent wouldn't even have time to prepare. But the girl brought 2 swords with her. That would be enough for a one-on-one fight. Matthew's character originally had some pretty strong physical skills, but he is now being trained by Weidong. For our hero, this is also a chance to check if there is progress after a month of training. Despite the upcoming spectacle, Aya realized that they would be here for a long time. The girls had already taken their seats with popcorn, and Velma puts her long hair in a high ponytail so that it doesn't get in her way during a duel. Matthew is not worried at all. After the battle with Harry's teacher, he realized that the level of hunters is actually lower than he thought. With the strength that Weidong gave him, he is far superior in level to his colleagues. Although the old man would undoubtedly have given him a slap on the head for underestimating the enemy, there is a student standing opposite. But she is from the senior classes, and also the president of the student council. We must not let our guard down. Matthew is confident that she is now at the level of a novice hunter. He offered Velma to attack first, which she did not refuse, asking to be useful for the attack. The girl quickly rushed from the spot, raising her sword behind her back. Maya was so amazed by her speed that she dropped obscene words, for which she received a reprimand from Aya. Velma is definitely faster than the first years, but our hero noticed something unusual. He thought that she was attacking with an intermittent diagonal strike, because that was the basis for a swordmaster. But the girl ducked when she attacked, which speaks of a lot of confidence. An ordinary student would have panicked and backed off long ago, but after the first blow she immediately got into position for the next one. The next one was an upward cut, but Matthew continued to dodge it without difficulty. While our hero does not attack, he only repels the attack and evaluates her skills. But Velma also wants to see what her opponent is capable of, what to expect. During training, Teacher Weidong beat the crap out of Matthew. His body still hurts. He told Velma that her body was leaning too far forward. She was too focused on the attack. But the girl warns that she has not yet shown everything she is capable of. Our hero slipped behind her and clearly showed that in this position she would not be able to cope with an attack from behind. The teacher showed him this, and just remembering what happened makes him shake all over. Matthew passed on the knowledge he had gained in this duel to the student. She puts a lot of effort into her arms and legs, which makes her very tired. Her attacks would get much better once she started using her shoulders, which she listened to. The atmosphere changed only because our hero adjusted Velma's technique. The student council president is different from the other students. But now she should get ready, because the next attack will be in her direction. The girls enthusiastically eat popcorn while watching the exciting fight. Even Aya, who was most eager to go home, forgot about time. But just as Matthew was about to attack, Velma stopped him, asking him to wait. She asked if she could use mana, of course not as a weapon, but for defense. Our hero was surprised that this was available to students. He forgot that from the second year of study they begin to visit portals. Before graduation, students are sent on F&E rank missions accompanied by teachers and hunters. Matthew, of course, doesn't mind. He's sure that her mana level is low, but it's still impressive. He noticed the difference in speed between her and the other guys. He was interested to know what she was capable of. During the duel with Harry, he didn't get to see the use of mana in action. This would be a good opportunity to test his strength against mana. Velma's attacks have become much faster. Now Matthew needs to concentrate, otherwise he might miss one. He just blocked the sword, but his hands were tingling. Without internal energy it would have been difficult. She didn't infuse her weapons with mana, but her physical abilities were greatly improved. Mana accumulates in the body according to the number of victories over monsters. In this world it will not accumulate infinitely. Humans rather have a capacity proportional to their skills. Weidong would say that mana is like internal energy. Our hero took Matthew's existing mana and converted it completely into internal energy. He is confident that it is much more effective than regular mana. To ensure his image as a teacher is not damaged, he must defeat the student without using his internal energy. After a few attacks, he can already see a pattern. The problem with hunters is that their sword attacks are too simple and obvious. This is because they are fighting low-level monsters. For the same reason, hunters have difficulty dealing with high-level intelligent monsters. Velma is already exhausted. She has slowed down so much that Matthew can easily anticipate her next attack. Now she tries to do anything, already knowing the outcome. But our hero did not attack. He simply tripped. The distance was too close to strike. She crouched down, badly bruising her knee, and Matthew put the tip of his sword to her. Velma had to accept defeat. She looks upset, but this student is very competitive. Finally, our hero told her that this was a great performance for the student council president, but her sword was too simple. Mana greatly enhances her physical abilities, especially strength, but she will become much stronger if she hones her sword skills and doesn't rely on mana all the time. Courtney is going to have a heart attack because if the channel gets bigger, she'll have to stay late all the time. A week after the interview was posted, things got really tiring. And the cause of the chaos was a video of a duel with the student council president. It became more difficult to calm the students down during classes. They began trying to get his autograph. True, while happily receiving them, the boys were later unhappy that their teacher didn't even bother with it. However, financially nothing has changed. Matthew will certainly not receive a penny for the video. He started going about his daily business, but completely forgot that the internet is a real jungle. People from all over the country left their comments, describing various emotions. Some admired that the teacher didn't use anything but a sword. Others didn't understand what all the fuss was about. An ordinary duel between hunters. Velma was also discussed. She won the martial arts competition twice in a row. However, no one knew Matthew before this. He looks as if he himself had just recently graduated. But our hero doesn't seem to be very happy about his growing popularity. And besides, if Velma was a promising hunter, then why was she never mentioned in the novel? Even after the main character's graduation, she never appeared. Teacher Edward interrupted his thoughts, asking how he felt about becoming a YouTube star. He brought a couple of glasses of coffee to treat his colleague and to exchange a few words before class. Teacher Edward Murphy distracted our hero from scrolling through the comments under the interview video. At first, Matthew enjoyed the popularity that had fallen on him. But now he feels some pressure. A colleague thinks that he has a wonderful character, but at the same time our hero is too passive. Although with such an appearance, he should have become a celebrity. It's good that Matthew is striving for a quiet life, but today, and in the coming days, it is unlikely to be that way. On his way to the teacher's room, Edward ran into the deputy headmaster, who asked him to send our hero to him. He didn't say what he wanted. Maybe he'll give me a raise. But in any case, I need to go. The deputy director is probably in his lab right now. Extra money was a good thing, so Matthew went to the meeting full of hope. But something was bothering our hero as he walked to the laboratory. Typically, bonuses are announced in front of other teachers at a meeting, rather than in person. Matthew felt a little uneasy about the excessive attention, but was most worried about the call to his deputy. This man is the strongest in the hunter school, one of the country's C-rank hunters, Benjamin Turner. Matthew knocked hesitantly on the door, and then looked inside to see the deputy sitting at the desk. He greeted his subordinate. This was their first meeting after the interview. This makes our hero feel even more pressure, since it wasn't him who was at the interview. Matthew declined a cup of coffee. He would have to leave soon to prepare for class, and so Ben decided to get straight to the point. He pointed to a bag standing next to the table and said that all the contents now belonged to our hero. Unfortunately, it wasn't money or gold. He was given a whole bag of letters, probably from fans. Matthew offered to read one out loud to the vice principal if he was curious. But Benjamin said that these are not from fans. Many were impressed by the video of the duel, and these are all letters from other schools, as well as from active hunters from fairly large guilds. The video was released for promotional purposes and to showcase school life, but Matthew attracted much more attention. For guilds, confronting a famous teacher will be more effective than any advertising. All 923 senders go to duels. Matthew didn't make any mistakes. It's just that all these people wanted to deprive him of his glory. Perhaps the fact that he didn't go to hunter school played a role. He didn't talk about it in interviews, but some of the teachers don't like him. It looks like one of them has been spreading information about Matthew. The problem is that the negative comments are getting out of hand. They write that the merits of the student council president are in question. Now the careers of Velma and her rivals are in doubt. They are suspected of rigged duels. As a teacher, Matthew has to stop everything, because if the interview had gone as planned, none of this would have happened. Benjamin announced the closure of the channel, which is a shame, because this idea was created so that parents could see their children's school life, and in the end, some of them were harmed. But Matthew is determined to clear up the doubts and shut the haters up. The deputy director wanted to know what exactly his subordinate intended to do. Surely among the haters there are those who sent a letter challenging to a duel. You need to choose only high-level and popular hunters. But Ben warned that among the senders there were many A-rank hunters who could easily be refused, since their ranks did not match his. However, our hero thinks that this is for the best. He will choose only representatives of A rank. If you defeat the strongest candidates, the weak ones will be eliminated on their own. It's a bit harsh, but that's the truth. After all, we need to be realistic. Matthew will not be able to cope with all the challenges, of which there are almost 1,000. And then the deputy director said something unexpected. He offered to spar with him. Matthew thought to himself that he didn't quite understand. but said out loud that the old man had gone crazy. After digesting what had happened for a bit, our hero realized that his thoughts and voice were mixed up. He told Benjamin that he didn't seem to quite understand him, but to himself he thought that the old man was crazy. But it's too late. The deputy director is not deaf and managed to hear everything. No matter what, Matthew is still right. How can a B rank fight a C rank? Benjamin understands why his subordinate thinks he is out of his mind. But watching his duel with Harry Young, the deputy was sure that our hero would lose. But he surprised him. Besides, Benjamin is sure that Matthew did not show his full potential, and judging by his behavior, our hero is confident enough to cope with A-rank hunters. But Matthew is only confident in confronting A-rank hunters. But starting from C rank, everything is different. In fact, there are about 1,000 A-rank hunters in the country, so they can't be taken lightly. Harry's teacher claimed to be an A-rank hunter, but he wasn't one. Of course, thanks to the old man's lessons, Matthew became even stronger. And given the difference between hunters and martial artists, he is confident that he can handle A-rankers. However, C ranks are different. There are only 10 of them in the country, and less than 100 worldwide. C-rank mages are considered tactical weapons, while hunters who use various abilities are called superhumans. Benjamin is one of the strongest C-rank representatives, and there is an episode in the novel where Bradley challenges the vice principal, and of course he loses to him, or rather, he was swatted like a fly. Of course, unlike the main character, who studied only skills related to internal energy, our hero learns martial arts directly from the master. Weidong told him that it was much better than consuming elixirs and spiritual plants. Benjamin asked Matthew to think about whether it would not be better to duel with him, rather than with the incomprehensible A-rank hunters. After the duel is over, the deputy will announce how good our hero is, then no one else will send requests for the fight, and they will be able to resolve this issue once and for all. Matthew won't have to defeat Benjamin, just one hit will do. But even one blow is an impossible condition. Our hero read during his lifetime that Benjamin's body is capable of repelling even an attack from the Aurora sword. The vice principal didn't expect Matthew to be so timid, but he had a trump card up his sleeve. If our hero successfully carries out one attack, the deputy will free him from the 3-week training that new teachers undergo during school holidays. Preparation involves interacting with other instructors, and Benjamin is certain that for someone who hasn't graduated from hunter school, such an event would be a thorn in the side. And the most important thing is that the salary will be accrued during this period, which means that he will receive 3 weeks of paid leave. But is it true that the deputy director will be able to exempt him from this, since the training is organized by the Hunters Association? There is an outstanding teacher program, in which the school administration selects 2 teachers each semester, who are exempt from professional development. In order for more people to see them, it is necessary to choose the best time for the duel. Next week there will be presidential elections, so the fight will take place in a month. But if Matthew comes at the appointed time and says that he refuses the duel, then he will be in big trouble. Our hero gave his word that everything would go as it should. In a month he would come to the duel. That's great. Benjamin will also keep his promise. Once they had reached a compromise, Matthew went to class. In this month, he needs to find a way to attack the vice principal during the duel. At first glance, the terms offered by Benjamin seem too good. But if you think about it, you realize how reckless this is. A hunter who is not in the major league should be able to land at least one hit on this monster. It would be like getting a star from the sky. You could say Matthew made a deal with the devil, but sometimes you have to do that. His goal is still a comfortable life, but he will not be able to sleep peacefully knowing that his actions have negatively affected someone's fate. The extra chapter opens, and from this point on, the story of Matthew Taylor, the tamer of the deputy director, begins. If such a chapter exists, it can be assumed that he will still be able to strike him. Our hero went to his teacher, confident that the old man knew some way, but was refused. Weidong called him crazy and said that even if he had a dragon on his side, he would still fail. The strength of the Aurora sword is equal to the sword dance skill. It turns out that Matthew needs to master a skill that in their language is called the aura of the sword. There is a limit to everything. How can you defeat an absolute master at the peak of his development? The most our hero can do in his current state is cut a couple of hairs from his chest. Even if Matthew uses all the possible amplifiers, it will not be of any use, but he would like to know what kind of amplifiers they are. These are spiritual herbs or elixirs, although 300-year-old ginseng roots can help one gain power equal to the sword aura. But when the old man realized, he gave the student a good slap on the head so that he wouldn't even dare to cheat. He also said that he won't be as strong as an absolute master, but he might be able to land one hit. But that's exactly what Matthew needs, just one hit. Our hero thanked the old man and quickly rushed away. Weidong asked where he was going. He said that he needed 3 ginseng roots, and they are not cheap. In the outside world, money rules everything, and next week they are going to elect a new president. Our hero goes home but promises to return soon. Meanwhile, Sora was lying in bed and looking at her phone. After leaving the organization, Matthew had never contacted her. Perhaps having become popular, he found himself a girlfriend. She just remembered, and he called. Well, of course, she is sure that he has no one but her. The conversation began with questions about business and activities, but did not smoothly move on to a request. But as soon as Matthew asked to lend him 700,000, the girl hung up. I haven't communicated for so long, and then he showed up with such requests. Of course, Matthew won't be able to find a 10,000-year-old fire carp or a 1,000-year-old ginseng. But as far as he knows, there is wild ginseng in this world. Of all the varieties of ginseng, there is one that can be considered a spiritual plant. This is heavenly ginseng. The problem is its crazy price. For a young plant that is less than 100 years old, they ask from 70,000, and for a plant that is older than 100 years, more than 700,000. Bradley came from a wealthy family and ate ginseng every day, but Benjamin smeared the boy on the ground. Weidong said that this happened because Bradley only ate spiritual plants, but did not absorb their energy properly, while Matthew can only eat one root, after which the master will help him absorb the energy of ginseng. The only problem is money. Now our hero has 2 million. But buying 3 ginsengs will ruin him. He remembered the deputy director's words that if they wanted more people to see them, they needed to choose the best time for the duel. There are presidential elections next week, so the fight will take place in a month, no matter what anyone says. But the best thing about elections is investments. Matthew didn't even think about it because he was dealing with the antagonists and now YouTube. He had been using the knowledge of the novel since day one, so why did he neglect the action? The first thing he did was go to the bank and take out a loan, which was approved. A third-rate writer in his past life, he was blacklisted by every bank, and now Matthew's TV gets a loan. He knows in advance who will win these elections, and can take advantage of this, and then he will pay off the loan he just took out. A few days later, a large delivery of 42 pizzas arrived at the classroom door, addressed to teacher Matthew. And also, as a thank you for a larger purchase, drinks from the establishment. At first, the students did not understand what was happening, but our hero was so happy with the money he earned that he decided to celebrate it. In the eyes of the kids, he seems so cool that one of the students even shouted out that he wants to become Matthew when he grows up. Over these few days, our hero's assets have grown by 500%. Initially, one person had a huge advantage in the elections, but shortly before the elections, a scandal broke out, and the popularity among the population has sharply increased for another candidate. This is called the miracle of loans and knowledge of information. The boys became interested in what good had happened. They were obviously not just overeating. Our hero said that he was just having a little fun with the stocks, but there is other news. He said that the day before the start of the holidays, he would have a duel with the deputy director. The students decided that their teacher had gone completely crazy. The whole school knows how powerful a monster Benjamin Turner is. No one can even hit him. Of course, our hero is no match for him, but the deputy director said that he only needs to land one blow to win. The students will root for their teacher, even though they are sure that he is going to his death. Now that the presidential election is over, Benjamin will begin spreading word of the duel. The reason Matthew decided to tell the kids everything was to drive a wedge. People needed to know the victory condition for the duel so the deputy wouldn't say anything unnecessary. Successful investments, Weidong's help, now the duel itself remains. All energy will be directed to our hero. After work, having received what he wanted, Matthew went to the mountains to Weidong. He brought him 3 boxes of ramen, 5 boxes of chips, 2 boxes of chocolate, and 2 packs of cola. I bought all the noodles in the store, but I didn't forget to prepare some food for myself. He took out of his backpack a wooden box, purchased with the money from the profit. It contains 3 roots of heavenly ginseng, which are more than 100 years old. Weidong once managed to enjoy a 300-year-old ginseng. These are a little short of that. But you can be sure that the seller did not deceive. Someone told Matthew not to rely on all sorts of elixirs and herbs, but he is glad that the old man appreciated it. The teacher told me to eat the plants faster and stand with my back to him. Using his knowledge, he will help to get the maximum benefit and strength from these roots. The energy spreading throughout the body feels like spreading heat. The only ginseng our hero ate in his life was chicken soup. He would never pay huge sums for the plant without need. Instead of trying to resist the energy the old man was pouring into him, he had to accept it. It shouldn't be too difficult since they had learned the same techniques. If the volume of Matthew's internal energy vessel before taking ginseng could hold a few drops of water, now it's like constantly scooping water into it with a bucket. After a few cycles, he stopped doing it altogether, and it felt like he was being washed away by the river. At some point, the old man wanted to ask one question about his financial situation. After all, he somehow managed to accumulate enough wealth to purchase 3 whole roots. This means that Matthew can quit his job and continue to live a dignified life. But he needs to keep trying to become stronger, because he has had several responsibilities lately. He needs to save a colleague who fell into bad company, and because of him, one of his students' reputation suffered. It would be easier to quit and focus on my life, but you can't sleep soundly knowing the whole truth. Weidong muttered to himself that he had not made a mistake in choosing a student, but did not comment. The ginseng turned out to be much better than he initially thought. He could have finished here, but the old man would make a gift for Matthew. It might hurt a little further, but the teacher asked our hero to hold on. Matthew's body was filled with an entire ocean, and it hurt because it felt like it hadn't been blown to pieces. Our hero barely endured all this. He didn't really have much of a choice. Crazy old man. Matthew cursed loudly to himself and out loud too, not understanding what he had done to deserve such torment. Weidong asked to shut up and concentrate. He warned that you need to be patient. Our hero wants to tell him to stop, but because of the pain he can't do it. The internal energy that the old man injects into him is different from the previous one. It was as if there was a wall inside that the teacher was trying to break through. It looks like he's trying to inject energy where there wasn't any to begin with. It had been a long time since Matthew had been infused with such powerful energy. In an instant he felt something crack inside him. Such a young guy's body was so stagnant. Matthew doesn't understand what it was, but he definitely won't survive it a second time. When our hero asked the old man if it was all over, he smiled ominously. Apparently this was just the beginning. Weidong placed his hands on his back again and continued. After some time, our hero came to his senses after losing consciousness due to the smell of food. He immediately jumped up and began to threaten to sue for such bullying. But the old man calmly continued to eat the noodles and praise how delicious the ramen soup was. He didn't even tell what he did with Matthew's body. He just asked him to be patient. However, Weidong had made every effort to help the student, and he couldn't be treated so disrespectfully after that. Once again, he is convinced that he has taken an ignorant bastard under his wing. But then Matthew realized that for the first time in his life, he had managed to dodge the master's blow, and he asked to be hit again. Weidong made a puzzled face. It seemed that due to one successful dodge, our hero gained confidence. Well, now let him try to dodge the next blows. Still, Matthew would like to know what the old man did to his body and what caused such severe pain. The medicinal properties of ginseng were very powerful, so it would be a pity not to reveal them fully. He used them to puncture arteries. Our hero read about this in a martial arts novel. The entire circulatory system runs through the very center of the body. When the internal energy makes a large circle, it passes through the 12 main channels, after which it becomes possible for the internal energy to circulate through the yin and yang veins. However, in most martial arts novels, arteries are very difficult to pierce. That's why he was able to react quickly to the blows. But this, of course, does not mean that Matthew became an absolute master. Now our hero is in the first class, then comes the highest class, and only then the absolute master. Weidong set a condition that for dodging Matthew would receive 2 hits. He did not achieve mastery just by eating ginseng roots. For this he only received a day of cultivation. It turned out that the roots are only useful for breaking through blood channels, and to overcome 2 stages, he would need at least 10,000-year-old ginseng, or the heart of a hornless dragon. Perhaps this could be obtained in his world, but in our city, Matthew, we will not be able to obtain such artifacts. It is up to our hero whether he can use the sword's aura in a duel. In order to win, he only needs to deliver 1 effective blow. This was the original goal of acquiring roots. Even though Matthew is the only one in his world who has martial arts, C-rank hunters are also monsters. During Weidong's time, there were many warriors who were at the absolute level. All the members of the major sects at that time were the strongest warriors. But now this is rare. We need to start training as soon as possible. Even if our hero loses, he only needs to land 1 blow. The old man believes that this is why Matthew will fail, because he is going to train knowing in advance that he will lose. The statement that 1 blow was enough to win would have angered Weidong if he had been in his place. Our hero didn't think about it, but if you think about it, it really makes him angry. The vice principal didn't say Matthew lacked self-respect. He would only acknowledge it if he hit him once. It's not about winning or losing. Our hero has accepted the standards set by his deputy as his limits. Matthew admitted that he had been thinking incorrectly, and now he wanted to attack him not just once, but all 5 times. Weidong said that 5 hits equal 50 points. He asked to follow him to show him something that would give him 100 points. This is not his martial art, so he did not talk about it before. On his way, the old man met a lot of people, but he could only call 2 of them friends. Now he will share something that only his friend knew. He did not share anything with him. It's just that they fought against each other so many times that Weidong learned his martial arts. Stealing someone else's martial arts is a grave sin. But since Matthew is the only one who knows martial arts in the outside world, it doesn't matter. This friend was weaker than Weidong, but he was 1 level stronger than our hero. And so they began training. The old man asked to use this knowledge to beat up his opponent. A week later, Sora called Matthew and asked to meet, although she herself hung up on them during their previous conversation. She wouldn't have done it if she knew he was going to make money on stocks, but now she wanted to meet about drugs. Sora recently received information that they were primarily traded in China, but were recently caught trying to enter overseas markets. She doesn't think it's their fault, but she feels it's necessary to warn them. And also about the duel with Benjamin, Matthew decided that the rumors started from his announcement in class. But this information is posted on the school board. She showed him the announcement about the selection of outstanding teachers of the first term. The decision to select outstanding teachers will be made after dialogue with the deputy director. Benefits are provided depending on ranks. You can apply in the deputy's office. The deadline for submission is before the start of the holidays. Matthew Taylor's name is already on the list of active candidates, and it feels like Benjamin still thinks our hero will refuse. Sora also added that there is real chaos at school. In the morning, a student came to her with a bruised face, but he did not say who did it. This student keeps claiming that he fell down the stairs. The other kids don't say anything either, and this makes her angry. She found out who did it. The worst student in high school, Bradley Anderson. Matthew spat out all his coffee on Sora out of surprise, since we are talking about the main character of the novel. The girl even suggested that Bradley had beaten up her friend. Otherwise, how else could such a reaction be explained? This bastard's father is the president of an advanced technology company, and his grandfather is the chairman of the board of directors of this company. He uses his connections to fool his classmates and teachers, and behaves disgustingly in class. Before the events of the original novel began 2 years ago, Bradley was in real trouble. According to the plot, teacher Sora hates the main character of the story until his very last day of work at the school. It is already difficult to convince her that with age everything will change. She is sure that people do not change, but people's souls change. 2 years later, Bradley will be a selfish, smug bastard, but he will be able to atone for his past. Sora is overcome with emotion at the thought of this bully going to high school. Hearing his name, our hero begins to remember that he himself is a time traveler. The girl waits for the school holidays just so she doesn't have to see Bradley's face. And if Matthew loses, he will have to go to advanced training. But the deputy director promised to relieve him of this duty if he could make him an outstanding teacher. It would be foolish to agree to a duel just to get out of the courses. Sora doesn't believe that Matthew will be able to land even one hit, since Benjamin is in the top 10. Our hero actually agreed to risk his life for the sake of a vacation. Everyone has their own priorities. Besides, the battle hasn't even started yet, and Sora is already rubbing salt into the wound. She came as close as possible to our hero and looked suspiciously into his eyes. He has changed too much. In the past, he would have probably refused such an idea. It seems that people really can change. They say that morning will come even if you wring a rooster's neck. Time flew by unnoticed, and here comes the day before school holidays. The spectator area was crowded with people, including both teachers and students. Sora also came to see. She thinks that Matthew has become too self-confident, although he has nothing to hope for. Some people think that this teacher doesn't even really know his subject, and yet he went against his deputy. Even the students who treat him well hope that Benjamin will take pity on him and not destroy Matthew in front of everyone. Most likely they don't speak loudly, but our hero hears everything. Most likely due to the body upgrade, his senses have become more acute. The student did not go to the bench, under the pretext that he wanted to pay for the pizza. But in reality, he just wanted to watch the fight from the front row. The deputy posted information about the duel on the notice board, which was only accessible to teachers. The students were not supposed to know about the place and time of the fight. Most likely, the teachers who don't like him spread this information. There are so many people in the room that he doesn't want to embarrass himself in front of them all. The student said that teachers gossip about Matthew behind their backs and criticize him for doing it to get the title of best teacher. However, not the entire team treats our hero badly. The general education teachers don't care whether he graduated from a hunting school. They unfurled a whole poster in his support and shouted that after the fight they should have a corporate party. And also some of the students who study with him actively root for their mentor. Matthew is glad that at least someone is on his side. Our hero entered the battlefield. His opponent did the same. The other, larger part of the hall enthusiastically shouted the name of the deputy director. He smugly said that he did not expect such a large number of spectators, although he himself advertised the duel. But Matthew has been training hard for the past month, and has no intention of running away. Benjamin gave his opponent a head start and allowed him to attack first. But to avoid losing face, he had to give it his all from the start. Usually high-ranked ones give up the first attack to weaker opponents, but this is an unwritten rule. Therefore, our hero was worried that the deputy would attack first. The referee came out to announce the rules before the start. Mr. Matthew attacks the deputy director once. If the attack is effective, he is immediately awarded victory. The judge then asked if everyone agreed with the terms. Our hero agreed, and asked him to leave the battlefield immediately after the duel began. The judge is a little puzzled, since he is an A-rank hunter, but Benjamin asked to fulfill this condition. Afterwards, the start of the duel was announced to determine the title of outstanding teacher for the first semester. Matthew jumped back to get into position to prepare for the first attack. The whistle blew, announcing the start of the match. Benjamin didn't move from his place, only watching what the enemy would do. After training in the mountains, Weidong gave his student a gift, a sword that one of his friends had given him. Once Matthew has mastered the art of swordsmanship properly, he should have at least some kind of weapon. Our hero has drawn it from its sheath, and he has only one chance to strike Benjamin. This is an outstanding Auror sword that can only be used by hunters who have reached A rank. The audience is amazed, because officially Matthew is a representative of the B rank. Of course, everyone present will be surprised, even those who don't like Matt, although they try not to show their emotions. The deputy director also appreciated it, but hoped that these were not all the enemy's trump cards. Matthew took a stance and gathered his strength in preparation for the attack. Sword Aura is a skill that only C-rank hunters can use. The public doesn't want to believe it. Maybe it's just a similar ability. Weidong said that Matthew wouldn't be able to use this skill in battle, but the deputy gave him a chance to do so. Usually a weak attacker will use a light attack to test the waters, but our hero is going to put all his strength into the very first strike. Benjamin noticed that the enemy took a long time to prepare to use the skill, which meant Matthew had not yet mastered it completely. This is the martial art of Weidong's friend. When our hero heard the name, he was surprised. Full name, Aura of the Heavenly Demon Sword Art. And the name of the attack, a demonic falling star that brings destruction. Everything became clear from the name. One of Weidong's friends and the original owner of this martial art, the legendary great monster, the Heavenly Demon. Matthew was surprised when he heard this. And the old man was surprised that Matthew had heard of his friend. Anyone who has read martial arts novels knows about the Heavenly Demon. The absolute center of what is called demonism, the great axis that crosses the world of Weidong, divided into factions. Even in the novel written by our hero, the readers have discussed the Heavenly Demon a lot. Decadent appearance and brute strength. He is quite an attractive character for the public. Nowadays, a Heavenly Demon can slay dragons or be reborn in the modern world to become a mafia boss or open a bakery. Even those who don't read novels have heard his name at least once. Old Matthew told them that he read about him in some stories about the past. Our hero thought that this old man was so strong that he could kill a dragon. But it turns out that he has a friend who is a Heavenly Demon. Matthew wondered what kind of great man the second friend was, but it turned out to be a drunk named Leo, who constantly spoke about the highest limit and organized the Udon or Wudang sect. A sword that is well imbued with power continues to grow in power, a crack being formed as a result of the constant application of new steel to the old. From the crack, myriads of fragments of power fly out like meteors. This is the aura of the Heavenly Demon Sword Art. There is only one barrier left to protect the spectators, and the staff is putting all their efforts into it so that it does not collapse. Harry's friend realized that her colleague had not lost due to weakness, because now Matthew had almost destroyed the triple protection they had put in place for the deputy with one blow. The judge, seeing what was happening, realized that if he had remained on the battlefield, he would have already died. Nobody knows exactly what our hero used, but he was definitely given the wrong rank. Matthew had spent all the energy his sword could muster, and it wouldn't be possible to do it twice. But as the teacher said, instant destructive power is the best, and it is enough to destroy most high-level monsters. Except for this monster, of course, but it can be defended with one effective blow. Benjamin found himself in a difficult situation. He agreed on the terms that the enemy had to strike one blow to win. Watching Matthew's first fight from afar, the deputy director knew that he was an unusual B-rank hunter, but he didn't expect such a powerful attack to fall on him, and he also hadn't experienced the feeling of a bleeding body for a long time. Weidong said that the reaction would be violent, and he would exceed all expectations. In a world without martial arts, such skills are extremely rare. However, the attack was so effective that Benjamin seems unwilling to end the fight, but it would be hard to argue with the power of the blow with such a shabby appearance. The deputy agreed to the conditions, but decided to back out. It seems he didn't think things would go that far. There are 10 holes in Benjamin's clothes, which means Matthew has already fulfilled his promise 10 times. The deputy did not deny it, but how can one end the fight at the most interesting point? And there were quite a lot of spectators, it can't end so quickly. The deputy director was so desperate that he decided to use children. But our hero is not sorry. From now on, he will not receive challenges to duels. He has achieved his goal, so it's time to finish. Victory for Matthew. It seems Benjamin is intent on ending the chatter and getting down to business. He acknowledges the strength of his opponent, but he also has social status. Now that the duel issue has been resolved, we can put on a show and entertain the audience. Benjamin demonstrated his hyper-regeneration skill. The bleeding stopped. He noted mockingly that it was only one effective blow, but now he was completely fine. The public doesn't particularly like the actions of the deputy. This is the tyranny of a C-rank hunter. But he doesn't care about image. Ben wants to see what else our hero is capable of. If Matthew refuses, the deputy will be even more lenient towards him. But his legs are shaking and his arms have no strength left. Thanks to the artery clearing, he recovered a little. But the skill he used earlier is the limit of his capabilities at the moment. There is reason to believe that Matt will not escape his fate of being beaten. Even if Benjamin hits with half his strength, our hero won't be able to parry it. Zam simply gave a push to move, and thereby destroyed the arena. In an instant he was behind Matthew, so fast that it was difficult to react in time. If this were a fight to the death, our hero would already be dead. He lost consciousness. Matthew opened his eyes already in the medical center. Before the blow, he even thought that he would again have to meet the Lord of Hell. Our hero was really knocked out, but despite that it was fun. At that moment, the deputy director attacked from behind and the fist was very close. Matthew remembered the advice of the crazy teacher to sacrifice bone to save flesh, and blocked the blow not with his sword, but with his hand. Despite the internal energy, the pain was accompanied by the sound of breaking bones. Our hero clenched his teeth and swung his sword, cutting the deputy. It felt like he was cutting steel instead of flesh. But before he was slammed into the floor, he could clearly see a cut on his shoulder. A small but distinct wound. Of course, the cut was no more than 3 centimeters long. But he'll have to admit that Matthew managed to land a hit. He's ready to do anything for a paid vacation. The curtain was pulled back by Nurse Bella, who realized from the quiet giggles that the patient had woken up. 4 hours have passed since Matthew fainted, and he doesn't remember this girl appearing in the novel. Our hero thanked her for her help, and because of this, she most likely had to stay late at work. She used magic to restore the shattered bones, but it would take a couple more hours of lying down before her senses returned. This is the healing that our hero read about. He thought it was universal, but it turns out that it has such inconveniences. The vice principal personally asked her to take care of Matthew, and Bella lives in the dorm anyway. To be honest, her father told her to come back after curfew, but she decided to stay. The girl became very interested in the teacher, Matthew Taylor. Our hero was more surprised not by the interest shown, but by the fact that Bella is the deputy's daughter. No one at school knows about this. During their short conversation, Matthew blurted out that Ben was an upstart, but the girl promised not to tell her father about it. She was interested in Matthew even before this duel. He seemed really cool, but she didn't think that he would be able to fight the deputy. Our hero joked that the deputy director won only because he lost consciousness. Bella doesn't think Matthew lost. The attack he showed was amazing, and many would agree with that. She turned out to be much kinder than our hero thought, and the girl also brought gifts from the students. Only there were no fruits there, but letters. The guys wrote that, although he lost, he fought well. There was even a letter from Edward's teacher, inviting him to have a drink when he came to his senses. After some letters, our hero even had favorites in class. And then he saw in this stack what he had originally started all this for, not counting the vacation. A letter of thanks from Velma, the student council president. That's enough. There is really no feeling of defeat. The main thing is to get relief from preparation. Matthew told Bella about the deal with her father about a 3-week vacation for winning, but she said that these tasks were quite interesting. Our hero did not attend a school for hunters, so he felt that his presence there would be out of place. However, the girl noticed that not everyone at this school dislikes him. She is looking forward to the next semester, and he doesn't understand how one can be treated with disdain just because he doesn't have a diploma from a hunting school. She'll have to get used to the fact that she's the deputy director's daughter, but at least Matthew has a new friend. Thanks to a miraculous healing, our hero recovered within a day, and the next day he was able to attend the school assembly. Fortunately, Benjamin kept his word and declared Matthew the outstanding teacher of the first term. Of course, there were also some dissatisfied individuals who did not understand how a teacher who was clearly weaker than them could become an outstanding teacher. Since Matthew was the only one the vice principal challenged to a duel, he had no choice but to give the award to him. Something curious also happened that day. Our hero received congratulations from colleagues who had never even greeted him before. They began to speak to him with respect, although it was a normal greeting. When Matthew started a duel with the deputy director, he didn't think that everything would change so dramatically. After the assembly, everyone returned to class, the teachers gave their speeches, and the holidays began. A relative of one of the students owns a boarding house on the island, so the boys invited Matthew, the teacher, to go to the sea with them. However, our hero was not so attached to them. He refused because he has his own life. Subsequent persuasion also did not yield results. His decision is the last one. Matthew has things to do, and the students can do whatever they want during the holidays. Our hero finally received a reward for the duel with the deputy director, and now it's time to have some fun. During the holidays, he decided to start a small business. Investing in stocks before the elections turned out to be quite successful, so he decided to earn some extra money during the holidays. The reason for this was his almost zero bank account. The payment of the loan he took out for investment turned out to be decent, taxes and interest, plus food for the old man. He invested most of his earnings into Bradley's father's company, so now he has practically nothing left. In times like these, it is necessary to find an additional way to earn money, and portals will help with this. While Matthew was lying in the infirmary after the fight with the deputy, thanks to Bella, he found out the schedule of the other teachers. She said that most likely the majority of teachers of practical disciplines will earn money on portals during the holidays. Teachers' salaries are not that big, so everyone has to earn money on the side. Of course, because Matthew didn't graduate from hunter school, he was something of a porter, so he doesn't know how much they pay there. Bella was surprised that such a strong ally was not allowed to fight monsters. She suggested going to the portal together, thereby strengthening their friendship. Besides, Wydong will be pleased if his student can buy more treats. Besides Bella, there will be someone else on the team, and our hero is also a little nervous before he gets to a place he has only read about. Knowledge of healing magic is probably very useful in raids. Perhaps the team will also have a smart tank, which is very necessary to cover the mage. Matthew thought it would be great to have an older friend, a tank hunter, but I didn't expect at all that a girl named Layla would go with them, although she is Benjamin's best student. Layla noticed that Bella did not hide her relationship with the deputy director from her new friend. Later, from the conversation, she realized that this was the very object of the latest gossip. Layla asked where their newcomer had left all his things. They needed to be thrown into the car, but our hero showed her a sword and said that he had nothing else besides this weapon. She pestered Bella. Was her friend sure that everything would be okay, since Matt didn't even take a shield? Our hero hears everything, but he remains silent. In fact, he expected to see a healthy, muscular man. By the way, in life, Caleb read about her, an A-rank hunter, a real monster, and later a wrestling instructor at Hunter High School. As Benjamin's student, she was the only one who could beat up Bradley during school hours. The scene where Bradley finally wins over Layla and she falls in love with him was very powerful. Matthew and Bella are B rank, and Layla is A rank, and they will try not to go above C rank portals during the holidays for safety's sake. There are 5 levels of portals, starting from the highest C and ending with the lowest D. Depending on the rank, the earnings differ significantly. Matthew thought that they would go to the B rank portals, but Layla was categorically against it, since according to the rules, there should be 4 of them. Besides, their equipment is not suitable at all. Now they will go to the C and D rank portals, and they will go to the B rank portals when they appear for 3 people. Our hero was upset, because this meant that he would not earn the money he had expected. Layla thinks Matthew is arrogant. She is sure that this upstart does not respect her teacher. A B rank without equipment and with a profit motive. It is precisely because of such a hunter that problems may arise. You will have to be careful. Layla decided to teach Matthew a lesson. If money was so important to him, let him clear the D rank portal, designed for 4 people, alone. Then he would take all the payment for himself. And if he succeeds, she will consider a sortie into the B rank portal. Matt agreed without a second's hesitation, which infuriated her even more. It may seem funny that a B rank hunter can't get into a B rank portal, but it's probably not for nothing that they're designed for 4 people. Layla showed her ID to the security guards and was granted access to the portal. She said that their teammate, a B rank hunter, would go in first, and the girls would follow him. When Matthew sees the portal, he has a feeling that there will be a swordmaster eating noodles sitting inside. Layla said that they had 1 hour to do everything, and if our hero couldn't clear the portal during that time, she and Bella would join him. Matthew has never fought monsters before, so this is a great opportunity, and his new acquaintance turns out to be more sociable than he thought while reading the novel. Bella warned that even though the portal was D rank, it was designed to be cleared by 4 hunters. In the world of the novel, the first portal Bradley went to was D rank. He had the same sword as our hero, received from Wydong. Thanks to the fight with Harry's teacher, Matthew was able to practice martial arts. Probably now he knows enough to be able to defend himself. It seems like a quiet life is going further and further away. Well, no matter how you look at it, he is still Matthew, an instructor in the art of swordsmanship, and he already seems to have fit into this world. Our hero heard that there was boiling lava and deserts inside the portal, but mountains were the most commonplace. Once on the other side, he saw a stunning landscape. The blue area around the portal is a safe zone, so it is unlikely that it will be attacked from below. Since this is a mountainous area, he won't encounter undead monsters or strange mages, but is more likely to encounter natural monsters. Matthew decided to start with those closest to him, so that he could find his prey more easily and would increase his senses. Monsters with a good sense of smell can detect its location, but it is best to announce your presence to everyone. Just below the rocks in the forest, Matthew sensed 3 large individuals. Our hero always feels like prey when he's around Weidong, but now he's going to become a predator. Matthew began clearing the first portal after entering the novel's world. The monsters immediately sensed his approach and screamed, declaring war. Monsters of large size, also possessing high speed. They climb trees well and make unpleasant cries. Giant monkeys, weak compared to other monsters of their class. They have a low drop rate of magic stones, which makes these monsters not the most attractive prey for hunters. In the novel, monster skins sell for mere pennies, not worth the effort of trying to catch these creatures. Ordinary hunters would be content with what they had. Without much effort, Matthew cut off the head of the first giant ape. Before that, he heard that the price of 1 magic stone was 200. The thought of how many stones can be collected in this forest excites Matthew. He enjoys the holidays. Giant apes are quite smart. When they decide that they cannot win, they immediately climb trees and run away. The skin of monkeys is thick enough to be used as armor. Moreover, these creatures are very fast. An ordinary D-rank hunter would not be able to cope with this combination. But today our hero is going to turn this dungeon into hell. He doesn't know the exact price for 1 skin, but all the money for the sold loot will be his. By the way, seeing monsters in real life is a bit disgusting. They are much more vile than in the novel. Fortunately, Matthew got acquainted with some materials at the academy. After blood got on his face and some in his mouth, he couldn't hold back and the breakfast came out. Even the monsters turned around and were a little stunned. Matthew didn't stop for a second. Covered in blood, snot, and vomit, he continued to run after the prey. The thing is, at the very beginning he strengthened his senses of perception, so he feels the disgusting smell of blood very well. Everything turned out much worse than he thought. He will have to get used to all this before the next portal. The military outside noticed that something strange was happening with the portal. Before one of them went to lunch, the portal was blue. But now it's indigo, which means A rank. They need to contact the commander urgently, as the hunter has already entered. The soldiers themselves cannot go inside and check if everything is okay, because if they are attacked, it will be the end for them. After all, they are ordinary people and do not have the same powers as hunters, especially A-rank ones. Hearing the guards panic, Bella decided that they needed to go after Teacher Matthew immediately. However, Layla, who always follows the rules, stopped her, saying that she first needed to contact the Hunters Association. The portal suddenly increased by several levels. Bella is sure that Matthew is not able to clear such a portal. Her friend reassured her by reminding her that portals change their ranks for certain reasons. This can happen if the monsters in the portal have evolved by repeatedly eating each other, in which case the rank does not increase dramatically, except in special circumstances. The second reason is that the dungeon evolves by eating hunters who enter the portal. In this case, the characteristics of the eaten hunter can influence the creation of a unique, never-before-seen object. A sharp increase in level usually occurs in the second case, so Layla is sure that there is no point in running after Matthew. It's been over an hour since Matthew left, so she suggests that Bella be realistic about the situation. Now Layla feels guilty. She shouldn't have sent him alone. She talked about safety, but in the end she created such a danger. Trying to make up for her mistake, she suggested that her friend wait in the safe zone while she tried to find him. Besides, she thinks that's what her teacher would have done. If Bella insists on going with her, Layla will knock her out. She promised that she will return immediately if she senses something is wrong. The girls convinced the soldiers that they would not do anything dangerous, but would just check if their comrade was alive. One of them still wanted to dissuade them from this, but the second allowed them to pass. After all, Layla is Benjamin's student. The worst thing that can happen is if Matthew has already encountered a boss that requires at least 4 A-rank hunters to defeat. Most likely the boss will be a giant poisonous spider, or a giant snake, or an ancient orc. If he is very unlucky, he will come across a man-eating ogre nicknamed Nightmare. Bella hopes that Matthew is alive and hunting small monsters, which is actually true, and they are worried in vain, although our hero has gone too far. He can't understand why he killed about 50 monsters, but there was no sign of the boss. The portal turns the sky yellow and disappears after 12 hours when all monsters are defeated, which is commonly referred to as a clear harbinger. The area is so huge, Matthew knew that there would be a monster here, but no matter how much he thought, it was strange. In the D-rank portal he met an A-rank creature, an ogre nicknamed Nightmare. If 3 A-rank hunters go against him, one of them will definitely die. In the case of 4 hunters, one will leave the portal with serious injuries, so at least 5 hunters are needed to kill the ogre. The main character of the novel had a story when he was assigned the wrong portal in which he encountered an ogre. The monster was 2-headed, such could only be found in a C-rank portal. Matthew believes that he can handle such a monster, but he will have to fight differently. He is very dangerous. Hard bones and highly elastic tendons make the monster mobile, and the skin is so thick that it can only be cut by the aura of a sword. This ogre is a monster of a different class. The loot from it will be significantly different. Before using the sword's aura, it is recommended to master your power. He did it with 1 punch. If the monster hits 10 more times, a crater will form here. But our hero doesn't worry too much about this. All he thinks about is the price of the stone that will fall from the ogre. According to Matthew's recollections, it costs a whopping 7,000, and our hero is drooling. He concentrated and used the aura of the heavenly demon sword art, demonic falling ride. Meanwhile, Layla, full of guilt and despair, runs on the tracks, hoping for the best, but also prepared for the worst. And Matthew is in ecstasy with anticipation of the dough. Layla rushed towards the forest, not knowing how far her ally had gone from the safe zone. On the way, she came across a large number of corpses of giant monkeys. The tracks never end. A whole path has formed from the corpses. There was a chase between the hunter and the monsters. And in addition, in some places, there was also vomiting. She decided that Matthew had simply been running away all this time, and that he was sick with fear, and she felt even more guilty, thinking that she had abandoned him to his fate. Although there are too many strange things in her guesses, every corpse she found along the way was killed in the same way. All of them decapitated with a perfect cut. Giant apes are the fastest monsters in their class. They have fairly tough skin and hard bones, and they usually hunt in packs, making them extremely difficult to kill one by one. Even the sharpest swords can't pierce monsters so easily, but if Matthew used the sword's aura, why is this person a B rank? In this case, it turns out that her comrade did not run from the monsters, but chased them. But in that case, it is unclear why he threw up on the way. Layla felt a moment of relief when she saw all these corpses. She even had hope that Matthew was alive. But a roar from the forest immediately destroyed her confidence. It was the same ogre she had not wanted to meet. She immediately recognized who this roar belonged to. An A-rank monster nicknamed Nightmare. His roar alone is enough to make most hunters go into a stupor. As soon as they come to their senses and start running away, the same end awaits them all. The ogre's huge legs destroy everything around him, and in terms of speed, he can outrun even a giant monkey. Layla is sure that there is nothing to see there. Matthew's death is obvious, so they need to hurry and get out of here. But just as she wanted to turn back, she heard a second roar. They usually don't roar without a reason. Perhaps this roar marked the beginning of a battle. In that case, Matthew was most likely still alive. She turned again and ran forward. But the situation has not changed. To catch a nightmare, at least 5 A-rank hunters are required. Even if the girl joins our hero, it will not change the result. A little more and Layla will go crazy. She does not understand why she is running forward. If she returns to the portal, she will be able to return home safely. If Matthew dies, there is a small chance that an ogre will chase her, but she will survive because Bella is waiting for her in the safe zone and she will help. And if she leaves right away, she won't be able to look her friend in the eyes, knowing that she didn't even try to save her friend. Talk of safety and sanity, and now a lack of understanding whether to run forward or backward. Layla is completely conflicted today. Running to the spot, she began to try to shout to Matthew. She screamed, hoping that he was hiding somewhere and she could grab him and run to the portal. But as soon as Layla ran out of the forest into the open space, she saw something she didn't expect. Matthew had no intention of hiding or retreating. In the clash with the ogre, he held the upper hand. What she saw was like a dream, a boundless, magnificent sight. There was no fear, no doubt, but rather madness and excitement on Matthew's face. He gathered strength in his sword and struck with incredible force. The ogre's huge carcass, cut, flew back. Ogre skin has extreme protection instead of regenerative abilities. Even the Aurora sword can't cope with this defense. But now the ogre's body is torn like paper. When Bella told her friend about Matthew's skills, she didn't believe her. But now she sees that it is definitely the aura of the sword. When our hero noticed Layla, he asked why she was here. It seemed to him that an hour had not yet passed. He didn't want to keep the girls waiting, so he decided to clear the dungeon in accelerated mode, and then suddenly the boss appeared. Layla wanted to know who the person was who had such power. Our hero didn't really understand that he had done something so amazing, so he started muttering that the skill wasn't perfect yet, but he had to use it. And also, he didn't even realize that the portal had risen in rank, so he said that he understood why Layla insisted on going to low-rank portals. In addition to the magic stone from the ogre, it will be possible to sell byproducts. Now Matthew is only interested in how much money he can make from such a giant. And suddenly Layla realized that our hero had a weak stomach, so he threw up all the way. Matthew complained that he had been vomiting for an hour, even the sky had turned yellow. But the girl said that it was turning yellow because the dungeon had been cleared. Before they exit the portal, our hero asks Layla to say that she defeated the ogre. She didn't understand why he was trying to take credit for his accomplishments. But Matthew explained that he didn't like to attract attention. He became a hunter not long ago. Moreover, he does not have the appropriate equipment. If people find out that someone like him killed an ogre, there will be a fuss. Layla apologized for being rude and admitted that she had initially formed the wrong opinion of him. She said that she was sure he had reasons for not standing out. It is unknown whether the others will believe it, but they will say that it was she who robbed him. As a sign of reconciliation and the beginning of cooperation, the girl extended her hand. However, she did not leave for a moment. Matthew's hand is covered in blood, shit, and vomit. Even flies have gathered around. Completely unnoticed, she quickly put her hands behind her back. The A-rank portal has been completely cleared and it's time to go get payment. In the safe zone, Bella was waiting impatiently for the two of them. She was completely exhausted, not knowing what to think. She even thought about running after him, but her comrades finally emerged from the forest safe and sound. Bella rushed to hug Matthew as soon as she saw him, and Layla bowed her head and continued to apologize. But a moment passed before a terrible smell interrupted the desire to touch our hero. Only after the explanation did Matthew realize that he had been declared dead due to a sudden portal failure. He can't imagine what he would feel if he were in their place. Layla heard the roar and ran to help, which means she had good intentions. Our hero decided to apologize for disturbing them and thank them for deciding to help him. The girls asked Matthew if he knew a company that handled mascara disposal, but since it was his first hunt, he pretended that he hadn't hunted in a long time and had forgotten. Coming out of the portal, our hero was delighted by the fresh smell of phytoncides. The air inside the portal is very different from normal air. The military cordoned off the portal. Matthew did not understand what happened. The soldier turned him into a path and informed him that a message had been received that the portal had changed its rank from D to A. Their squad arrived from a nearby base upon request for support from the Hunter Command. It seems they gathered here because they decided that all 3 hunters died in the mutated portal. Our hero reported that everyone was safe and the portals were cleared, which surprised the soldier. Following Matthew, a huge nightmare face appeared. The military immediately received orders to prepare their weapons. But Layla's head popped out behind him and she told the fighters that everything was okay. The military is puzzled by what is happening, not understanding how 3 people were able to cope with him. The girls pulled out the ogre's body piece by piece. Matthew went back to finish cutting what wouldn't fit. The soldiers had only seen something like this during training. They didn't think they would see it in real life. Everyone knows that it takes at least 5 people to catch such a monster. But they decided that Benjamin's student was on a completely different level. Since our hero came out first, everyone initially thought that he had defeated him. But then it turned out that he was just a smug, handsome man with a stupid expression on his face. The military does not believe that the swordsman could have left such wounds with a sword, but he certainly helped. Matthew is pleased that everyone fell for the fact that it was Layla who left those wounds. But if it weren't for the Heavenly Demon sword technique, he would have had a pretty tough time. The company called them and said that they knew Layla well. The main thing was that they paid well. The employee has many questions. It is the first time he sees a giant monkey in such good condition, and an ogre that has turned into a rag. The girl said that the hunt was successful and everything turned out so well. And when the employee named the prices for the monkeys, Matthew almost fell over with delight. Then came the assessment of the ogre. The bones were fine, but the skin was too damaged. With all this, he named a huge sum, without taking into account the magic stone. Layla decided to consult with Matthew whether this amount was okay with him, and he cried with joy. But let the employee name the price if you add the cost of the magic stone. Our hero could not contain his joy, despite all his love for money, which seemed very strange to those around them, because they were sure that Layla did everything. A huge amount for just 1 dungeon. It's just a jackpot. If it weren't for Bradley, the teacher would have dropped everything and become a hunter, taking into account the tax breaks for the teachers of the School of Hunters. The calculation was completed in an instant. Most likely the people whose plans were thwarted by the portal mutation were given 10% of the profits. Matthew is not such a greedy miser. He transferred part of the money to Bella and Layla's account. Besides, he made them worry. Let this money be a thank you for going into the portal despite the danger. Besides, they still have to work together. The holidays won't end for a long time. They can continue. Our hero apologized once again and promised that he would count on their support in the future. Layla froze in place without saying a word. And yet, it seems she is starting to fall in love with our hero. Even after they had already left that place, the girl periodically remained in the clouds. Bella noticed that her friend was acting strange. Even when she came to their house, she didn't say a word and looked like she had no appetite. But she has nothing to say. All she did today was drag a carcass and be a driver, and earned a decent amount without doing anything. She even feels embarrassed, and she is thinking about returning the money. But for an A-rank hunter, this is a small amount. It can't be the reason for such depression. Layla still remembers the terrifying swing of the blade that crushed the ogre in 1 blow. It was a technique that no hunter had ever shown. She told Bella that her growth had stopped once she reached A-rank, and Matthew could be her key to power. Benjamin heard her words and said that it was an accurate observation. He had already heard about their joint hunt and the portal mutation, since she is his student. He understands perfectly well that she would not have had enough strength to cope with the ogre alone. If we consider the possible options, then most likely it was Matthew's teacher who dealt Benjamin an effective blow. Layla did not hide the truth, saying that everything was really like that, and also said that teacher Matthew himself does not want everyone to know about his power. Before this, Benjamin told his students that there was a vacancy at the school for a teacher to teach spearmanship. She had previously refused, but now she has decided to get a job at the school. Besides, her contract with the guild is expiring, and she will have to resolve the employment issue in the near future anyway. Starting next semester, Layla will come to the school as a spear training instructor. At the same time, Matthew went to the teacher to tell the news of the victory. He told how he cut the deputy director's left hand. He clearly saw it before losing consciousness. There was blood everywhere. But our hero was a little offended that Weidong seemed to be more interested in food than in his achievements. Although, if you look at his cheeks sticking out at the sides, you can see a smile. The old man laughed at the fact that the deputy director used a strong technique against some fool. It seemed he really didn't want to lose. Matthew thought he had scored a full 110 points, but Weidong only gave him 90. In any case, only thanks to the help of the teacher, our hero managed to successfully overcome the crisis. Grandfather accepts gratitude only in the form of food, such as a serving of stewed pork. Actually, Matthew was going to give this to the teacher before the trip with the vice principal. It's a gift he prepared for him. Instead of food, he gave him books. These are textbooks that are used in learning the language used in the outside world. One of the books is unusually large and heavy. Matthew gave the old man a laptop. All he had to do was learn how to use it. There are a lot of movies downloaded to the hard drive to pass the time, as well as music videos. Weidong comes from the Middle Ages, so at first he was afraid that there was a person sealed in the book. But Matthew explained that this was just a recording of the image, and the girl would not see it even if you waved your hand in front of her face. Now she is the most popular idol among the people. Interpreting in the language of her grandfather, we can say that she is like a dancer. Weidong has been spending time alone for a very long time, although he is now used to it. But there is no one in Matthew's world who could get used to this. In the past, there was undoubtedly a desperate struggle with loneliness. But when the old man calmed down and looked at the video, his reaction was a little unexpected. He was saddened that even a famous dancer could not afford a decent outfit. It was a joke. Just seeing the mysterious book and sesame noodles was enough. Aside from the portals appearing out of control and everything being in chaos, the outside world has really developed amazingly. But today our hero needs to teach the old man how to use a laptop, because he has some work to do starting tomorrow. He won't rest. Weidong himself said that the best training is a real battle. His student will go kill monsters. They both sat down to figure out what a mouse is, what buttons are. Matthew continued to tell his story, and the old man listened attentively. The next day our hero met with his partners. Everyone has already had breakfast and is ready for a productive day. Layla suggested that we go together in her car today. In the back seat, Matthew saw something that hadn't been there before, a modular spear that Layla was going to use a little from today. This is very unexpected, since according to the plot of the novel she never used this type of weapon. Her main technique is hand-to-hand combat. Bella said that the position of spear teacher at the school had become vacant, and Layla was going to submit her application for the position. If we are talking about the spear technique, then it seems that they are referring to the place of Harry's teacher, who left after being defeated by our hero. Due to Matthew's actions, the plot has changed, and now Layla will not become a hand-to-hand combat teacher. But he doesn't understand where he made a mistake. He didn't even particularly recommend the spear. Casually, Matthew decided to ask Layla why she made such a choice, but the girl did not comment on her decision in any way. She just thought that school life would be good, and during the holidays she could relax and receive a salary. This certainly can't be her motivation, since one visit to the portal brings in so much money. In any case, Matthew will try to stop her. He is not some minor character. If Layla's character changes, it will be a disaster. He asked if it would be difficult for her if it was not her specialty, since handling a spear looked difficult. Hunters who originally used a spear will of course have an advantage, but the spear fighting taught in school is not that difficult. However, from further conversation, Matthew heard that she was only getting a job as a temporary teacher. If teaching doesn't suit her, she'll take the exam again and move on to hand-to-hand combat. Then maybe it's not so bad, and when the main plot comes around, Layla will return to the role written in the script. The portal scheduled for today is where the undead monsters come out from. When they arrive, it will already be lunchtime. Maybe we can eat first. It turned out that the girls had brought lunch with them, and Matthew hadn't prepared anything. He decided to give them a little hint to share, but it turned out that caring Bella had prepared food for him too. Our hero did not expect at all that someone outside would prepare dinner for him. During his school years, when he went on excursions, he was grateful even for the small amount of money that his parents left on the table. He couldn't even dream of lunch. He told his partners about his surprise. He thought they had prepared food only for themselves, although Layla was suspiciously silent. Bella said that they couldn't do that. Do they really have such a cruel reputation? For Matthew, it's a touching moment. According to the map, there is some park nearby, and there is a blanket in the car. They will have a picnic before work. Having arrived at the place, the girls laid out a lot of delicious-looking food. But when Matthew took a bite of the onigiri, he didn't know where to go or how to react. There was a lot of salt added to this rice. A lot. Layla already knows about her friend's culinary skills, so she pretends to be full. Having somehow finished lunch, they arrived at the portal. The portal with the undead is red. Layla is hungry, and Matthew is dying of thirst after eating salt. Not the best condition, but they did a good job of cleaning it up. Throughout the entire battle, our hero thought only about how much food he would buy as soon as the opportunity presented itself. After that, Matthew, with Layla and Bella, spent several days in the portals without rest. They have conquered some of the famous portals in the country. So, besides food, they worked well together in many ways. At an unexpected time, Layla's phone rang. Her uncle called her. It seems something happened and she should come. From the conversation, the partners heard that she was needed for a whole week. Something about a rank A portal and an urgent situation. Matthew pricked up his ears. It also said that if Bella was needed, support could be organized from the rear. He also heard about the need to find out another person's schedule. Deciding that this was the turning point of his second life, he approached and showed with his whole appearance that he was ready for anything. Layla told her uncle that she would contact him as soon as they agreed on a schedule and said goodbye. She doesn't mind taking Matthew and Bella with her, but that's not the problem. Distance and time are quite a serious issue. Layla's uncle is the head of the Hwarang Guild, which is located on the other side of the country. Quite a few wounded people came out of the A-rank portal, and they say that the guild lost a lot of fighters. He asks to come at least for a week and help. He says that he will not only pay for air tickets, but will also provide housing and transportation. Matthew is ready even if there is no support, and Bella asks to leave all the cooking and magic to her. Ignoring Bella's desire to eat, Layla promised to treat them to a tasty meal upon arrival. We can have a good rest for a day and leave for the Huaran Guild the day after tomorrow. By the way, his students also said that they would go to the same places, although they were not going to have fun, but they would not be hunting all day either. If the schedule matches, it would be nice to meet this swordsman. It was time to pack his suitcase. Matthew threw in his clothes and shampoo. By the way, it is unlikely that you will be able to get off the plane with a sword. According to Matthew's recollections, he had never landed with a weapon before. Sora called him. How lucky, I might as well ask about this at the same time. This is permissible if you show a hunter's license, and only as luggage, which is why she called. I wanted to remind you that his license is expiring soon, so it's best to hurry up and renew it. Our hero has less than a month left for this. If he doesn't extend it, he won't be able to teach classes next semester. A few days ago, she received a message from the antagonists. It was a planned contact, but they mentioned Matthew. That's how she found out. It's strange that they mentioned his name, since he had severed all ties with this organization. Our hero made a big splash on YouTube, and during a sparring session with the deputy director during the start of the holidays ceremony. Although the video has already been deleted and filming was prohibited during the sparring with Benjamin, there are dozens of posts by students on the internet. Most people simply don't believe in the aura of the B-rank hunter ball, and decided that the students were exaggerating, so it didn't become a big topic of discussion. However, Matthew's abilities have been appreciated to some extent. The organization is currently short-handed, so they are showing interest in him again. They even suggested that Sora pretend to date Matthew, thereby bringing him back into the ranks of the antagonists. The management insisted, but she managed to come up with a suitable excuse and somehow get out of it. So most likely, from now on, they will no longer talk to her about our hero. Matthew's words made him even more anxious, and he wanted to know what excuse she had come up with. She started saying all sorts of perverted things, like Matthew had brought something like a whip and asked her to hit him with it. He wanted to smell her feet, tried to secretly steal her socks, and generally described him as crazy. But when the antagonists heard this, they didn't ask any more questions. Sora is the best friend. The next morning, with a clear conscience, Matthew headed to the other end of the country on a mission. Because of the holiday season, there were a lot of people around. They say that the wounded hunters will return soon, so if you wait a little, they too will be able to rest. But first you need to go to the Huaran Guild. Layla's cousin Charlie promised that she would meet her. They heard her call out to them, drawing their attention to herself. Layla's cousin is a hunter of the Huaran Guild. She has a C rank, one lower than Matthew. It's true that she ran to greet Bella first, not her sister. Layla interrupted their joyful squeals and introduced Charlie to Matthew's teacher. The first thing that interested her was whether our hero really was a teacher. Because of his handsome appearance, she thought he was a celebrity. Charlie asked them to follow her. She would tell them the details of the mission on the way. On the way to the Huaran Guild, it was possible to learn more about the circumstances. Last week, 3 ogres appeared in the 10-person Class A portal where the guild's main forces were sent en masse, and with great difficulty they managed to complete the quest. But one person died. The vice leader of the guild and all members of the team were seriously injured. One of the guild members was so shocked by the death of his comrade that he decided to resign. In a world where magic exists, if you are not dead, then treatment is possible. But mental trauma cannot be cured by magic. It looks like the situation is very bad, and will be much more tense than Matthew thought. They drove up to a multi-story building. The guild base is located from the 7th to the 10th floor. The head of the guild, Leon, and accordingly Layla's uncle, personally went out onto the street to greet the guests. There is no need to ask questions about how he is doing. If everything was fine, they would not have seen each other. He seems to be on good terms with Bella too, and Benjamin asked me to convey that he regrets that he couldn't come in person. Afterwards, he met our hero, who was as radiant as his daughter. They went inside to discuss some details. Everyone had already heard the story itself. Their guild usually forms squads larger than necessary, because the safety of the guild members is paramount. There is currently a serious shortage of people, so only 5 will be able to join them, although the target is a 7-person B-rank portal. The guild leader asked Matthew what he thought, and he replied that 5 people seemed like a lot. He whispered to Layla that the 3 of them would be enough, and if they were all B-rank, then they could do without additional support. First of all, if there are too many people, the profit also decreases. Leon was surprised by Matthew's confidence. He also heard that before working as a teacher, he was a member of some guild. Matthew said that he was a member of the Chase Guild, which is a fairly well-known guild. However, the B-rank hunters from the Huaran Guild are distinguished by their coordination. If such a portal requires at least 7 hunters, then there is a reason for it. Moreover, his daughter, niece, and niece's friend are participating in this operation, It's unpleasant to even talk about reducing the number of people. Layla and Bella certainly know how strong Matthew is, but they didn't think about how it would look in the eyes of their uncle. This needs to be stopped immediately, otherwise something terrible will start. Leon greeted our hero with a smile, since his daughter brought him, but he turned out to be a cheeky boy. Guildmaster Huaran offered to go out and teach the young man a lesson. Layla intervened in the argument and tried to cool her uncle's ardor. But it's not just a matter of personal hostility, but the safety of new guild members. And if he brings someone, let him bring normal people, not jokers like these. Our hero drew his sword Aurora and demonstrated the sword's aura. When Matthew first used the sword's aura in a sparring match with Benjamin, he still had no control over the power. And now he is very accustomed to these sensations, passing through the ranking portals. They say correctly that practice is the best training. Leon is confused. He thought that the person sitting in front of him was a B-rank hunter. Our hero apologized for seeming frivolous. Everything he said was not a joke. Everything was said for safety reasons, since before this the three of them had worked harmoniously together. The portals keep appearing. There's not even one hunter left due to the many wounded. If Matthew has such abilities, then the team can be reduced. Bella asked Leon to trust our hero, because he even won the duel with her father. Although she exaggerated a little, rumors about this had reached the head of the Huaran Guild. Layla also had the same reaction at first. Perhaps it was worth telling about it in advance. Leon wondered why Matthew, with such abilities, was only at rank B. To pass the A-rank certification, you need to clear the B-rank portal at least 100 times. But unfortunately, foreign experience is not counted, so it is a bit lacking. This year our hero will only renew his license. To avoid any misunderstandings, Leon recommended that you immediately undergo verification as soon as you fulfill all the conditions. Portals are a real practice. Although their team has good physical training, the fact is that they do not meet the requirements for passing the A-rank certification. This probably means that they lack experience compared to their fighting power. Leon will assign 2 hunters to them, who are well-versed in the area and specialize in support. As expected, the leader of a large guild is different. He realized that Matthew lacked experience and compensated for it. Although our hero said that the 3 of them worked in a coordinated manner, in reality there was no special arrangement. When Bella cast the enhancing magic, the others simply cut everyone in a row. One of Lion's appointees was Layla's cousin, the swordswoman Charlie, whom they had already met. The other 2 are Jared, who uses mostly fire magic, and Prudence, an amazing sniper. Leon assigned 2 boys to his niece's team, the most capable of those who were supposed to join them originally. Jared, who mainly uses fire magic, and Prudence, an amazing sniper. They asked to entrust them with the Huaran portal zone. To some extent, the guy also has detection skills, and will be able to detect the threat. Although Leon appears frivolous, he does have a careful side. Their group consists of melee fighters, so they were given ranged allies. They decided to enter the portal straight away, just to try to slightly synchronize their movements. On the other side, their team saw a cave-type terrain with many bends, very complex, with many blind spots. The more common monster, the big red rat, is a difficult portal, so clearing it was postponed until later. Jared thought Matt was some kind of psycho when he heard about the reduction in the roster. But when he suggested that they take a couple of hours to look around first, he changed his mind a little. Prudence pointed out to the team that they had been out of the safe zone for a long time and needed to be on guard. Noticing the noise behind her, she turned sharply and drew her arrow, but Matthew was faster. In a split second, he rushed towards the big red rat and cut it open. The partners who joined did not think that our hero was so strong, so they could not hide their surprise. But Matthew imagined the big rat to be quite different from what it actually turned out to be. But of course, in his mind it was something more absurd than threatening. Prudence decided that with such an imagination, it was a good thing he hadn't become a writer. Furthermore, he sensed the rat's presence faster than a B-rank hunter, and it seemed like he didn't even use any mana. Since this is a portal designed for 10 people, there will be a large number of monsters ahead of them. Matthew senses them. His abilities also include those suitable for detection, and he will cover the new team members. For Prudence and Jared, this is of course strange, because their job is to cover, but now they understand why the team was cut. After 2 hours, they were already tired of climbing around the dungeon, sometimes climbing up, sometimes descending steeply down. It seems that 2 hours was the allotted time not for research, but for completing the cleanup. Matthew and a couple of his girlfriends are pretty resilient. They were tired, of course, but they were enough for a couple of hours of waving weapons. Most of the monsters in the caves are large red rats, which are a fairly easy opponent for our hero and Layla. After the cleanup was over, Prudence whispered to Charlie, because according to the information received, Matthew has a B rank, but she herself doesn't know anything for sure, because it was the elders who invited him, and she herself just met him. But Jared realized something. He asked Matthew his full name, Teacher Matthew Taylor. Jared was one of those who sent a letter after watching the video on YouTube. At this scale, they could make a decent profit, but since there is no deposit, they will have to return empty-handed. At least Layla and Bella did something, while those who joined from the guild just watched from the sidelines. But Matthew suggested that all the profits be divided equally among all team members. Jared and Prudence didn't expect this, because they had done absolutely nothing. But our hero calmed them down, saying that he had overdone it a little while trying to calm them down. It would not have been possible to enter without them anyway due to the insufficient number of participants. Moreover, they believed and followed strangers, although it was not a joke and lives were at stake. So, for a while, a team was assembled to participate in supporting the Hwarang Guild. All this time, the car they arrived in was parked near the portal. All personal belongings, including a mobile phone, remained there. The students wrote to Matthew in the class chat that they would be in the same area in a couple of days and invited him to join. For the next 3 days, their team actively cleared portals, managing to do several a day. It's mainly thanks to Matthew and Layla. Their monster-killing speed is incredible, plus Bella's boosting magic. This is the last portal for today, as it is already late, and Matthew is on his way to a personal meeting. He agreed to meet with his students, but first he needed to at least wash himself. Everyone's expressions brightened, and by the 3rd day, interactions also began to improve. The hunters that were injured will soon be returning in droves, so next week might give us some breathing room. He doesn't need a car, the distance is short, so Matt decided to take a taxi. But Jared insisted. He was going to drink beer and pass out anyway, so he handed over the keys to his. When it was almost dark outside, our hero was very close to his destination. Having a car, he can even take his rascals and go somewhere. His most talkative student, Sky, called him, and he was glad that his favorite teacher was nearby and would be there soon. Of course, it was difficult to talk, because my classmates also wanted to take the phone. They went out for a walk around the city center, and Maya stayed alone in the room because she had a slight cold. In about an hour, everyone will be at the hotel, just in time for our hero to have a snack after work, or make an order for everyone. The classmates went wild when they heard about the food and became more aggressive, trying to beg for meat. It became impossible to talk to them, so Matthew said that beef was bad for you and hung up. First he goes into the store, buys drinks and sweets, but it looks like something happened ahead. There is a terrible traffic jam on the road. This is definitely not an accident or a breathalyzer test, because it is not the police who are stopping traffic, but the military. Matthew decided to turn to the private to find out everything. While clearing a nearby portal, one monster broke out. The hunters fell through and the safe zone was removed. The area is closed off. There is danger ahead. Drivers are asked to turn around as soon as the cars in front leave. This means that Maya is now completely alone in the danger zone and could get hurt. The entire area was closed off, including the hotel where his students were staying. People were evacuated, but Matthew knows for sure that not everyone, the military asked to try to get through to the girl. The ominous premonition works accurately in most cases. When Maya picked up the phone, another soldier came up to find out what had happened. The student, in a sick voice, said that she was indeed in the room and had fallen fast asleep. Matthew warned her about the monster, and that almost everyone had already evacuated the surrounding area. Our hero asked her not to go outside under any circumstances. A Shadow Reaper has escaped from the portal. Precautions. Turn off all lights and maintain complete silence. This monster occupies a high position in B rank. It is like an ogre in A rank. It has the ability of invisibility and great strength. She must hide until the teacher arrives and takes her away. But suddenly Maya asked about his appearance, that he holds a scythe and wears a black cloak. It's not that she didn't doze off in class. It's just that she can see him with her own eyes right now. Moreover, Maya thinks that it will be difficult to remain unnoticed. And she is not talking about herself, but about those who also failed to evacuate. He hunts 2 small children who try to hide from him behind a car, but they are so scared that it is difficult to hold back the sounds of crying that are bursting out. As soon as the boy hiccuped, the monster immediately reacted and raised the scythe behind his back, but Maya managed to run out into the street and throw a stone at his face to divert attention to herself. Finally, she shouted to Matthew that he should come as quickly as possible. The illness has left her very weak, so she won't be able to run for long. Both our hero and the military are shocked by the current situation. However, Matthew is a hunter and is temporarily a member of the Hwarang Guild. Perhaps the military can help him get inside the cordon. However, the situation on the road is very bad, and you will have to wait until the cars in front leave. Without thinking twice, Matthew asked the soldier to turn around. There was a possibility to go another way. Although this route will not be very good for the car. His colleague Jared, meanwhile, is enjoying a free moment in one of the local bars. A glass of beer is just what you need after a sweaty, fiery Friday. Prudence kept him company, although she usually doesn't drink beer, but today she wanted to. Jared is happy with his cooperation with Matthew, because at this rate, he will pay off the car and become rich. Having gathered his courage, he recently took it out on an installment plan, and as a token of gratitude for the money he had earned, he decided to lend it to a new acquaintance. And Matthew rushes headlong through all obstacles, hoping that Jared will understand and forgive him. Oh, if only Jared knew what news awaited him soon. But Maya's life is in serious danger. Financial disagreements can be discussed later. During classes, our hero always told his students that safety comes first and second. If you climb without a plan because of unnecessary heroism, you can become a hindrance to others. But no matter how hard you try, there are situations that cannot be avoided, and you can meet a monster that is beyond your strength. As a joke, Matthew asked me to repeat the pose he does, one hand on the chin, the other on the top of the head, and then a strong turn to the left, the stronger, the easier, and without pain. In fact, first assess the situation and then run. You need to evaluate, at least in order to know where it is safer to run, then your chances of survival will be greater. And it's always better to remember where the hunters' camps or safe zones are. At the end of every class, Matthew would take the entire class out to the playground to run and build endurance. Now Maya understood on her own skin what all these trainings were for. If not for them, the Reaper would have cut off her head long ago. For a first-year hunting school student, it's already a miracle that she can escape. And the children she saved don't understand why she sacrifices herself for them. One day she was asked why she decided to become a hunter. Usually everyone answers that hunters are well paid, everyone in the family is a hunter, and so on. But Maya replied that she came because her sister said she wanted to go to hunting school. However, this was not a serious reason, and Aya was very surprised to hear such an answer. Maya didn't understand the reason for the surprise. They looked at each other a little questioningly. And then Aya reminded her sister that she made this decision when she was just a baby. As a child, Maya watched a documentary about people who lost their families to monsters, and she decided to become a hunter to prevent as many such incidents as possible. She herself doesn't remember this, but her sister thought she was cool. She decided to become a hunter to help and protect Maya. If she pretended not to notice those days, she could survive. But if she returned, she would not be able to look her sister in the eyes. If you run straight, there will be cover. You just have to run as fast as you can. She asked the children to hide in the building, and she would bring the hunters. But then he disappeared, dissolved right before her eyes. This is the most dangerous ability of this monster. The reason it is only hunted in groups is because of the Shadow Reaper's characteristic sudden disappearance and reappearance. Maya reacted as soon as the Reaper appeared, but she physically couldn't do anything in time. The scythe was heading straight for her, but the monster was distracted by the sound of a car horn. As he raced at full speed, Matthew had only one question in his mind. He had never taught his class to close their eyes in the heat of battle. Our hero threw the Reaper onto the hood and dragged him away from the children. 3 minutes earlier, Matthew used his abilities to sense the road. He was able to see a large area, even feel the faint aura of 2 children. If you think about it, Maya appears in the original, maybe nothing serious will happen. But it's worrying. First Sora decided to leave the antagonists, and Layla decided to become a spear instructor. Matt's actions after arriving could cause a butterfly effect. Our hero concentrated as much as possible to identify only the dark energy. He was able to see both the monster and Maya running away from it, after which he pressed the gas pedal to the floor and rushed straight towards them. The car, taking the Shadow Reaper with it, flew into the body of water located directly behind them. Matthew jumped out of the car, gathering his inner energy into his right hand and breaking through the windshield. With such technique, he didn't even need a sword to destroy the monster. With one blow, he split the Reaper's head in 2. Maya was crying, either from fear or from happiness. Seconds ago, she was ready to say goodbye to life. Once the monster was defeated, Matthew fell into the water, and Jared's car was already parked at the bottom. It was good that there was little aura. If there had been more people around, he could have been late. When he got to the shore, he asked how Maya was feeling. Unable to contain her emotions, she rushed to the teacher and burst into tears. Although she only went outside because of the children, she herself was very scared. She was not hurt, but she is very worried that because of her, an expensive car sank. Suddenly, Matthew himself thought about it. Most likely he will have to pay for it out of his own pocket. Meanwhile, the night in the area is getting deeper and deeper. Police, a military vehicle, and an ambulance arrived at the hotel to examine the children. After the Shadow Reaper was captured, swift action was taken. All thanks to the children who were the first to run away and report it to the relevant authorities. Judging by the equipment, even those hunters who were combing the area have arrived. Maya decided not to call her parents, otherwise they would take her home immediately. Good deeds are good, and helping is good too. But there is no point in sacrificing your life. However, Maya hoped for salvation from the hunters or the military, or Matthew himself. But if he had been even a second late, the Dark Reaper would have cut her into 2 pieces. But the student changed the subject. Why waste such a beautiful appearance? With such a beautiful face, you need to be a popular superstar, not covered in blood. She thanked Matthew for saving her and said goodbye. The next time they would meet would only be at school. A police officer came up and reported that they had managed to extract the Reaper's body. He was impressed by this, so he asked our hero about his activities. He thanked them for their help, because if it weren't for Matthew, they would have been on alert for several more days. Our hero was asked to follow him to headquarters, as a report on this matter needed to be filed. At that moment, Matthew realized his mistake. First, he spoke with the security leadership, explained what had happened, and received thanks. Afterwards, the governor came to talk, and the conversation turned out to be almost the same as the last one. Then the hunter who had let this monster escape came to apologize. They could have gathered everything together first. Then there would have been no need to repeat ourselves. You say hello, explain the situation, and then someone else appears, and the cycle continues again. Matthew's expression changed, and he asked what reward awaited him for the work he had done. The guild that lost the monster stated that they would pay a reward for the Reaper's body and for fixing the problem. They would also buy a new car for Jared with full compensation. The governor also said that he would consider giving a righteous award. A monetary reward is good, but the righteous award did not particularly appeal to Matthew. Moreover, if he receives even such a reward, he will definitely fall into the sights of the antagonists. Our hero suggested giving this award to his student Maya, since she risked her life to save 2 children. Since there was nothing else to do at headquarters, the policeman offered to take Matthew where he needed to go. Our hero still hopes to make it to the butcher's shop and have dinner with his students. They told him that they really wanted to eat beef. Matthew gained enough to feed everyone. Sky was drooling so much that he couldn't even wait for her to finish frying. Apparently, the guys didn't have time to have a proper dinner, and Matt was worried about Maya for nothing. He was even offered to take a free room in a hotel and spend the night there. Besides, he had already agreed to go to the beach with the students in the morning. It was late. There was no point in running around. And then we can play board games together. The next day, the children played water polo, although in groups of 4, and Matthew was relaxing on a sun lounger with a cocktail. Now it looked more like a vacation. He noticed that the boys had good stamina, so he decided to increase the physical activity starting next semester. In a friendly manner, the girls teased Sky by pushing him under the water. Then the boys started whispering among themselves. And suspiciously cunningly, everyone looked at Matthew, as if they were plotting something. Their teacher is always alone. They decided that he is bored, although in fact he is very good. They began to call him into the water so that our hero would play with them. While they were chatting, Aya snuck up from behind, but Matthew had already spotted her. The girls rushed at the teacher from both sides, trying to grab him, but this was not their level. Matthew ran away, but managed to press certain points on their bodies. Sky screams that they are losing him, but their bodies have stopped moving. He would like to master this technique too. It's too early for them to challenge their teacher. They're only first years. Matthew decided to go get some drinks while Maya sat in the shade and kept an eye on the boys. It's not a matter of special treatment. She's just the calmest of everyone present. Sky asked what would happen to the girls and learned that he would let them go in about 10 minutes. It's a good thing he was on his teacher's side since the pizza. The boy followed Matthew to the cold drink stand, and Maya is having fun as best she can with 2 statues on the beach. The sister really didn't even flinch, but she would soon come to her senses, and the ridicule would not be forgotten. They didn't expect this from Maya. She's the worst of all. She did everything as if she was quieter than water, lower than grass. However, all their threats are useless, because the teacher loves her more. But the girls' attention was drawn to the guys heading straight towards them. There are 3 handsome men, and they don't seem particularly decent, and 2 of the girls can't move. They asked how old the beauties were and if the girls would like to have fun with them. The situation has become very uncomfortable. We can only hope that the effect will soon pass, or the teacher will return.